pray in the name of Moses, be holy be his name. But we start the process of the peace as a race, not through names. And this is the purpose of this letter. So we are going to give you a Facebook name that we can all communicate and organize. You don't need to be in Rome. On the 16th, deliver a copy of this to every priest, every imam, every holy man you know, and ask them, you ask as humanity that you want to unite the humanity as through their souls, not through the name of different religions. So this is what we told you is going to be the change, and this is up and according to our roadmap. There is no change. If I'm there on my own, I'll be there on my own. If anybody in Italy would like to be, you're welcome. Organize it. You don't need to be in Rome, or to be, if you are Italian or you pass Italy, you're quite welcome. But wherever you are, take a copy to the priest, to the imam, to the holy man, to whatever you believe. Even if you worship a statue in a different name, put it in front of the statue. Then this way we as total soul of the humanity will change the course of humanity, not the men of the physicality who do it for their own benefit. So this is the change. This is the time we change things according to our wish and our will, according to what we know where we want to be. The world of trying to bring world peace treaty starts from here, amongst us, with us, and with the whole lot. Give the same thing to the world leaders, to the mayors, whatever you can do. We have reached a point of the change in so many different ways, but the change has to come, and the change has to be through a very peaceful way. We are not asking to close the churches, we are not asking to lock up the mosques. You still pray through the channels which you find peace with yourself, with your soul, and you have the contract with, what you call religions. But good morning, Arwen is here. So this is the way we go for the change. We meet at 10 o'clock, or if it's too early for you, we meet at 11 o'clock in front of Vatican. And we hand the message to the Holy See, to His Eminence Office of the Pope. We know that they received the World Peace Message Treaty and the rest of it on inauguration of the Pope. So we are adding the two papers, and we ask if the Pope, if Vatican, if the Christianity as the major world leader in the name of God, in one of the names of Creator, would put the hand out to the rest of the religions to call all in for peace. There is a problem with this. Muslims will not go to Vatican, and nor do the Buddhists or the Jews, because then it's accepting a submission, and this is against them. So, as we said, we set the SSI head office where we work now for the meeting of any kind of religious leaders they want to meet on a neutral ground. The house, the building is set, and it was chosen for this kind of meetings. The people who are in SSI, they know the way this structure is set. It's set to welcome world leaders. It's not set to be a center for anything else. It's set for the world knowledge and the center of knowledge. So can you silence it, please? So we ask you to follow this. Doesn't matter if you're in China, if you're in India, if you're in South Africa, you're in Australia, wherever you are. Start giving this message to all the religions that you demand as a man for unification of all the religions in act, not in talk. We accept there is a very major problem. We have become to blame others to be not worthy of believing in God. I was explaining this some times ago. It has become the habit of past few decades that the wars and the worst things happens, unfortunately, with the people who believe in the beautiful name of Muhammad, his name. All the terrorists, all the killing, all the wrong things. But, as I said in one of my talks, the man who shoots the bullet to kill, his soul is responsible, plus the man who designed the bullet and the man who thought to set up the war to do that killing. So the punishment goes all the way down the line. I explained that last time. Now the same thing goes. Where do all these get all these weapons to kill each other in the name of themselves and the others? All comes, majority of it comes through the financial, through the factories, which is handled by the Christians. Which is handled by in the name of God in different shape or forms. So now it's time to stop all this mess. No, the one who shoots, doesn't matter what religion he carries, is as guilty as the man who designed it, who even pushed the button to cut the first metal for the bullet. So this is where the change comes. No one to blame, but all to understand. This will not happen overnight. There are so many bullets made, they want to use it. There are so many guns made, they want to use it. We asked the world leaders for peace. They thought this is just a talk. But if we are not listened to, then we show the power in a very, very, very simple way. In a very, very simple way and effective way. Through the power of the technology. Then the world leaders have to follow, the religious leaders have to follow the people, and this should not be. That's where the chaos comes. That's where we've seen the revolutions which end up nowhere. Direction has to come through the Vatican, through the world leaders. This week is the passing of the Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran. All these world leaders, Ayatollah Khomeini, his eminence, has to take a step to bring this peace. This move, and the same goes with the head rabbis in Jerusalem. We have to put the name like we drive a car. It still brings us to the destination where we want in a peaceful way. It doesn't make any difference if you have a Rolls Royce or Mercedes or a Fiat or a bicycle. If we want to get to the beach to enjoy the sun, we can get it, doesn't matter what car we use. So the names has to go away. It's the pleasure of being on the beach to enjoy the sun with the others. This is the change. We do not know what the steps will be taken. There is a lot of pressure to bring the Keshe Foundation website and everything down because they knew this step is to come. You might see some interference on the website in the shape or forms as of today. Do not worry. We have moved everything to the public Facebook. We are trying to set up, by the end of this program, we give you a link. This link will be called Walk with Messiah. This is what we do on 26. Every single one of you is a Messiah, if you can change the direction of the course of humanity. So, people in Vatican know we are coming. If you know, if you have access to them, your ways, inform them. The time of change has come. We hand things over. If you're in Italy, if you want to be with us on the 16th, not this Monday, the next Monday, I'll be in Rome with the documents. I have prayed in Vatican years ago. And I still pray that this house become the house of peace, not the backing and the followers of the wars. As I said in my paper, they can keep the wealth they've created. God has the wealth of the universe. This is nothing but the dust. And if it comes, the dust can be finished. So now you said it's the 13th. Now you know why it's the 13th. It's the end of the past and the beginning of the new time. And as humanity, we plan it, not we follow it. And in that way, when we can bring this unity, then we can open the space to the man. We share the knowledge freely, now we share the peace freely. Post this, ask anyone, anywhere, any Facebooks, anywhere your connections you have in the media or whatever, to call the 16th the day of the unification of the faith of the God. And don't be shy if you give it to the priest and the priest puts it in the fire or puts it under the drawer. Tell them the Vatican has a copy. If you see a mom, tell them already is in the hand of God and the followers of Muhammad. If you are a Jewish, give it to the rabbi. There is no time to think what they might do with it. The time is how you give it with your soul, that they receive it through their souls, not a physicality of a letter. I showed this to the knowledge seekers last week and especially yesterday, how their thoughts will affect the operation of the reactor. A reactor is another being, another entity. And they've seen it with their own eyes. But strange enough is they limit their own intelligence and their own giving. So the system at the moment gives a very limited response. When they can give it freely, the way it should be, then they see they can control the whole spectrum. And this is the same way. Physical giving of the paper is not important. The way you give it through your soul, will be received. So I will ask, and I'll mention it again before the end, Monday the 16th at 11 o'clock, we'll be in Rome and we hand over to Vatican. If you have any connection or links to Vatican, send them the emails. We are coming to ask for peace. Vatican knows fully about us. Vatican knows about the movement of the Keshe Foundation in a peaceful manner. So it won't be strange to them. They already listen to it because they monitor everything from here. So let's see if we can change the mind of the souls who already know the body has to be ready for this change. We have seen a lot of changes in all the religious sectors in the past few months and couple of years, trying to be correct because they know the time is coming. At least they want to come with a bit of clean sheet of the shirt. So we meet on the 16th and we'll see what we do. There are other things which are important in respect to the foundation. As you know, 2 weeks ago we sent a letter to International Criminal Court in respect to the cases we are setting out. We have not heard anything from them up to now. But you have to understand that the Belgian government has submitted documents and requests officially as in the government to Google and all the websites to hand over all the communications which come to Keshe Foundation. So they are monitoring and they are censoring whatever we might be on the way or we're going to receive. We know documents have been asked. Google officially hands over all the communications, anything which goes through any of the Keshe Foundations, to the Belgian government and two other governments, because they requested, they're calling us a terrorist organization now. So that way they got it. So Google is not a safe place for anybody to have anything, because the minute they receive a letter, they have to comply with. And that's why we bring everything to the Facebook. The other point is there is a lot of questions in respect to scientific side of the foundation. I try to explain things during the week to the knowledge seekers, and whatever it is to be added, we try to explain here. One of the things I was explaining yesterday to the knowledge seekers is that there is a lot of talk about the table of Mendeleev. How many elements are in this table? How many elements do we know? I explain in a different way, but in a short way I try to explain that you might understand it easier. If you look at hydrogen and a helium, now that you start building reactors, now that you see working with the GaNs, is the difference with the amount of gravitational magnetic field in one package of the plasma of that element. Helium has a little bit more than hydrogen, but slightly in different formation. So we call it helium. Now that you're building reactors in creating gravity and magnetic fields, you have for the first time humanity has access to create any different amount of magnetic gravitational fields. So in time you will be able to do all the ones which are in Mendeleev table. But the question is, does that limit the number of the elements? Expand your horizon, look deeper beyond what you've been told to look at. Every star is a center, is a proton, is a neutron, is a center of a system. And it has electrons which we call planet. We call it an atom. We call it a solar system in a bigger scale, we call it an atom in a smaller scale. So now that you have the capability to produce different gravitational magnetic fields to go from one solar system to another, you move from one atom to another. So as there are many stars with different gravitational magnetic field of their own fingerprint due to the extent of their magravs, every star, every element is one element, one entity, one element. So the man with his limited knowledge has just found a few. The Mendeleev table, number of elements is equal to number of the stars and galaxies and the universes which are in the horizon of the man. So what you have to extend and open the way you think and you consider. There are no what they call fantasy and exotic elements anymore. Because with the reactors you have, if you have a double core or a single core, you can create it. You have created a specific gravitational magnetic field which is beyond the Mendeleev table. So you have created a new exotic plasma, which if your knowledge leads you to it, you can create this matter. So the Mendeleev table is not even the first step in the number of the elements in the universe. This is what man could understand, and now we open the door to the further knowledge. So if you think of it, you can now today add billions of new elements according to the number of the stars, the gravitational magnetic field packages they have into the Mendeleev table. So this is what you have to look to openness, not a narrowness of mind and thinking. This is the process of the new technology. This is the process of understanding the whole structure, not a little bit that you feel comfortable with. This is part of the packages of the new knowledge, part of the structure of the new knowledge. Yesterday and this week, the knowledge seekers and part of the last week are calibrating one of the reactors. What has happened is that in this calibration, they will explain to you how they do it and how they've done it. They change gases, they change the speed, they change currents or whatever. But strange enough is that every addition or reduction in the gases in the reactor is the size of um, a 4 centimeter by 4 millimeter tube amount of gas at 1 bar, which is then expanded into a 5 meter tube, which then a 4 centimeter out of this 5 meter is chosen and is fed into the reactor. So it is very, very, very few atoms, thousands of them, which go in, not millions. And when we feed these few little, we see the change in the fields of the reactor. But strange enough is that we have another detector which is fixed to one of the center cores. And more or less within seconds we see the change in the flux of the center core too. We have two detectors, one fixed on the one we are testing, which is about 1 meter, 2 meters away from the star formation core. And when we add a very few atoms into this core to become plasma, we see the change in the structure of the fields in that reactor. But more or less instantaneously, we see the change in the other reactor in the center. So one field influences the other, and it's the same. If they could pull and push each other, they create their own solar system and their own what you call element of Mandela table. But the whole thing is that when you do the change, when you see the other change, compare it to the man. You release the fields. I sat the knowledge seekers in front of the reactors again yesterday, and I told them, give to field what you, to the reactor what you feel, and take what you like. When they were taking, the fields went like to 0.7222 in that region, and it stops in that region. And when they are giving, the field goes up to 0.7, 2.75, 2.74, and it stops in that region. Then you see just thoughts affect the behavior of the reactor, and the behavior of that reactor affects the behavior of the center core. When you give the letter of the unification of the faith to the priest or to the pope or to the ayatollahs or anybody, it's not the physicality, it's the thought which you give, and the thought is carried to them, and it'll change their soul, and through their souls they'll accept the deed. There is a connection and understanding between all levels of creation. It's the man who restricts himself because this is what he can handle, this is what he can manage. And if he goes beyond that point, then you find out you have to reject it, because there's nothing wrong with the science, with the technology, with the faith. Is that you are not capable, your brain is not capable of doing it. As all of you know, we call this place a spaceship center, a knowledge seeker center. So when we look at something, we try to look at all aspects and all connections of it. When I said to you that you can accept so much and you cannot do more, it's the same with your brain. When your brain creates so much information and the body cannot accept, there is a switch in your brain, it stops. This is how much information I can send from the brain to the body. And if the information is too much, and it switches off, and if I was explaining this to the knowledge seekers last week and yesterday again to different ones, the brain switches off, cannot accept. So what you get the spasms. Every time the switch opens up and shuts to get rid of some of the information you have created, you get one shock. And in so many ways we call it epileptic attacks. The epileptic attack is not a sickness, is due to the amount of information which is created in the brain that it cannot be handled by the physical part. So like a switch light is a capacitor. When it reaches to a point, it switches off. When the energy is used, it switches back on, it charges again. And every time it charges, discharges, you get one shake. So It's the same way. We have to create the shake through the same process, in pieces, in one way. What is the problem? Why? Oh, okay, no problem. There's no problem. We will announce this new Facebook for the meeting. I've just been told they don't allow the Facebook. We need somebody in the institute. If you are listening, somebody of the listeners, open Walk with the Messiah Facebook and share it with everybody else, because they don't allow us through Facebook to open it here. There is some blockage somewhere in the system. So if any of you can open the Walk with Messiah Facebook, that people can say where they're going to meet and what they can do. Sorry about this interruption, I just received an information. So what it is, you have to understand the connection and the interaction and how you produce so much information. When you give so much information to the brain that the body can't handle, the body stops what it can handle. And then you get what you call epileptic attacks. It's the same thing with the human race. When you give so much that the soul gives to the body, but the body cannot handle, then you get the outrages and the break stops, because it's too much for them to handle. Don't expect that everybody walks to you with an open arm for what you deliver, because they have to put a lot of dogmas and a lot of beliefs, false beliefs aside. As I said in this paper, can I have that copy, please? It says, very simply, we become blind why the color matters, why race matters. Very soon, all of us become a foreign race to the rest of the universal people. Very soon, in time to come, our children and grandchildren will become refugees in the space. I was explaining this to the knowledge seekers yesterday, or the day before. In the human race, in my life, where I could not live and my home was threatened, I had to take refuge in another country. Now that we have opened the space, and in the coming time, because if we say it will not happen, we are hypocrites. In time comes that this planet will come under some sort of, and one way or another, self-destruction button, or get destroyed by whatever shape or form. They call it the greenhouse effect, they call it the meteorite, or whatever. When we lose our home, what do we become? We become refugees in space. This is not the first time it will happen, it's happened before. And in so many times, so many ways, we have to find home. We have to find somewhere. We cannot be people on the seas and traveling around till we find home. If we find home that gives us welcome, at least a place to be able to be, do we fight it, or do we fight if there is a life there for us to survive, or we share and allow them to share with us? And don't forget, people in space have the knowledge of the understanding of the thoughts, as I told you with the reactors. So we sooner or later become refugees in the space, as I have become refugees on Earth from one nation to another. What do we carry from this planet with us? The love, the care, or the fight and the religions? Or we go as united, because it doesn't matter where we are, we find out we were fighting for nothing, because the motherland, the home, is gone. There will be no Vaticans to turn to pray for because it's in the dust, or there is no Jerusalem, or no, what do you call it, Mecca. We carry the God, the name of God in our souls, not in the heart or in our body. And this is what the man has not understood. So we are refugees. Where we can, we find a place where we will call home because we have no home. Then are we going to carry on with the same ethos, the same problem as we created here? Or we'll be subjected to destruction because those will not accept this behavior. I explained yesterday or the day before to the knowledge seekers. As in time we will become refugees of the space. In past times the refugees have found place on this planet. They are and they've been and they'll be among us and they have been among us. But they have taken a shape or form that leaves the man to be what they are. These are not theories. Very soon, and sooner than you can think, man has to shake hands and understand how generous the people of the universe have been to man to allow them to do what they've done up to now to themselves. The policy, the ethos is not interference. Otherwise we don't see new evolutions. When you don't have home, when you don't have a place to call home, any place that you can feel home is welcome. This is what I keep on telling you, and I've been telling you for past few weeks and months. We will not teach you how to build a reactor, but show you the consequence of reactor and the effects of the reactor. What this knowledge is there for and it'll be for. Time of change is from A to Z, not just the Z or not just the A. In trying to develop technology, walk away from looking at the reactor. Look at the totality of what this reactor will offer, what it gives you, what it takes from you, what through it you can give to somebody else. And strange enough is that when you take and you watch the systems, you see the taking with all of the people is about the same. But when you look at the figures on giving, it's different. And the ones who pretend they are very giver and generous, when I look at their data, are the worst one because they're actually the ones who want to take, but they talk different. But the digits and the machines and the system don't lie. I have put 4 of the knowledge seekers through this process here. And the data I've seen is exactly what I've seen in their soul. Nothing is hidden. This is the way they will try to dictate their own destiny through their souls. We have put a reactor, we call it the brain, on the board upstairs. It's copper oxide. And in time now it's becoming white and white and the spots are white, and soon hopefully it'll be very white in the next weeks and whatever. Because it receives the energy from the knowledge seekers when they are here. You receive knowledge through what you give us. But this center should not become a Mecca. This center should not become a temple. This center should be the temple of peace, knowledge, that is open to every direction. You don't need to be here to receive it because it's given to you freely. The whole point of this workshops is not to teach you how to make copper oxide and to how to make nanomaterial. Is to show how to use the knowledge to make a new path for humanity, for yourselves. If you think you'll be immortal by knowing how to make food or energy, nothing in the universe has ever been immortal. So the whole process is how we can serve to give to others. Try to make sensors for your systems, dynamic systems, and watch it and sit in front of it and watch how the sensor goes up or down or whatever. And then you understand the meaning of your own soul, which you cannot lie to. Philanthropist has become a word of nowadays. But if you watch philanthropists, philanthropists are the ones who are putting more money away than actually they're giving away. There's a Bill Gates Foundation in Holland. Apparently there was some $1 billion in this trust. If you are a philanthropist, why do you hold on to so much? It's in the paper which I've written about this unification of the religions through the leaders. There should be no bank, there should be no building. If the purpose of a faith, if the purpose of is there to serve, why do you hold on to things that the others dying hungry and they're in no shelter? As I wrote written in this paper, if you read it, God does not need no home, no bank accounts, and no banks. When you open a bank account and put things in it, it means you're holding on to that you don't want to share. And this habit has to stop, because now more and more people are developing different ways of doing things the way it suits the humanity. The whole structure of the foundation and institute, we don't call it a faith, because then we run into the same problem. We don't call it the university of whatever, we call it the institute, which means it's open to everyone, is to take away that nobody becomes cash followers and they become a cash religion. The whole purpose is all of us together as a soul, we are cash. Doesn't matter if you're a male, female, black, white, yellow, dying in bed of a cancer, or just been born. There will not be a sect, there will not be a religions, and these things are finished with. This is how man divided himself. Now we work as one. This unification does not need to be physically through the soul. How many of you, being any believer of any, follower of any path of worship, have seen a body in the back of a car and the hearse going to a mortuary or into cemetery? You bless the soul. You say, "Oh, bless him," that whatever. This is the wrong way. You don't know what that body, what the state of the soul of that body is. This is what I do, and I explain this a lot of times to everybody around me. I give to the soul. I said, take what you need, that you find peace within the state of your soul. And I'm happy the more it takes. And sometimes my wife knows, I tell her, well, this soul is so much need. Because the more it takes, the more I receive to be able to give. It's the same, if you don't believe it, sit in front of your reactor and do the same thing with it. You find out the more you give, the more you receive to give, and the figures will go higher and higher. Now you have found a way to test your soul, the true meaning of your own intentions. Then you understand you cannot lie. Then you understand how the only lie detector is your soul. You can tell lie whatever you like. But it's you who knows where it is, even if you have come to believe you are very generous in your subconscious, where you knows what a stingy man you are. So, by going to Vatican on the 16th, we are not going to disturb anything. We are going to give our souls in a direction that 2.2 billion of the men on this planet send their souls to. This is the number of the followers of Christianity. Just go on the Google, just put the faith and see the numbers. Then, with the majority of the souls, we can change the rest of the souls. This is the purpose. It's not just handing over or meeting a body who called in the figure of whatever title they might carry when we see them. Or we might give it to the Swiss guards because we are not good enough to see the sun. But in transferring the soul, we set the new scene. The knowledge has to go with science. The science has to go with the understanding of the eventuality of the behavior of the man in respect to himself and the others. Not physically. Putting things and being charitable at the same time stealing it from somewhere else doesn't make you Robin Hood. This is a strange way which I always watch, and I watch, the more I watch, the more I hate the way the humanity has set itself. I've spoken about this before. You watch the factories in China, in Japan, or third world nations, people are paid a meager fee just to have enough to eat. And the same company goes on the stock exchange and shows 10 billion profit. Where do you think that profit goes? Why do you see so much crisis? Because the man who built it, the woman who worked in the Bangladesh to make the shirt for you, could not feed the child. The soul is not happy. You receive the money as a dividend. Where does it go? Loss in a bigger. You pay the hospitals, you pay to the heart surgeons, you pay to the cancer treatment. If the man, if the woman lives with a happy soul where he makes it, and nobody steals from nobody, the company shows 1% dividend. Maybe 1 million, 10 million. And apologizes for making this profit. Because somewhere is taken from somebody. This is how it is. A lot of people, when I said this in the meeting, a lot of people cringed. I'll give you a live example. How you pay, and even if you're not aware of what you've done, and you see it in the news. Go and read about how iPhone and Apple treated their workers. They jumped off in South Korea, even the youngsters, because they could not handle whatever was going on there. They knew they are doing the wrong things, building the wrong way, and not really paying people. We saw the owner and what happened to the top man. He died the most horrible life. I would say, oh, the most genius man, the most best man. If he was kind, he would say, my profit is low because I paid correctly to the man. He didn't need to jump off the offices. Go back in the history of where they manufactured the Apple phone and Apple systems. They put a net around the factory that people, when they were jumping off, they don't die. He knew his poisoning. He knew his workers are not paid well. And we saw what a horrible life he died. Look why. Just don't say the man gone this way. It's the consequence of what they've done. A man who's correct will die a peaceful time in bed. The books are clean. It's just the physicality which the soul takes on. Look at the world leaders, hiding and ducking and whatever they do. The books will be clear when you leave the physicality, but in their own way. You don't need to be hung or to be shot at to receive punishment. The demons you sleep with at night is your punishment. You punish yourselves. Please start. Not that a lot of you ask me, where do you buy these sensors? How do you make it 3D-dimensional sensors? Now put these sensors on your reactors which you built, and sit in front of it and put your videos on the Facebook like you put with the others. And show the true intentions the way you are. And I wonder how many of you will ever put this on the Facebook. Because a lot of you will be ashamed of your own way which you thought it was hidden. So this technology is not just changing, bringing you free energy or going to space. This technology brings you to your own judgment day. Then you know how you go and how you change. There is a principle, and this is the way the universe is run. You take none unless you are given, and you give everything, that in one time somebody who needs it can use it. Then we come to the balance. Then we come to understanding a lot of things, why this technology is come, and it goes hand in hand with everything else. Closing of the book of the past, opening a new technology, and entering a new dimension in the future of the mankind with a new clean slate, but at least knowing what the worst thing is which they lived for thousands of years. Now we're not going to repeat the past. And this only comes when we as people understand that most of the wars, most of the aggressions has come through different ways of the people who believe they are the men of God, have advised the world leaders to protect the assets of themselves. So the criminality of the world leaders which have killed with the clearance of the man of the rope has been a mixture of the two together. So now to stop the whole thing is the job of the man in the rope to instruct and clarify to the world leaders that what has gone wrong, and that's the end to stop. And that's why we go to Rome. If you're a Muslim, go to mosques. If you're a Hindu, go to wherever you go and pray. If you're in India, go to the Golden Temple and explain that. Let the world leaders, religious leaders call that. They come, as is in my letter, in my paper which I released today, in the cloth of men, not in the rope of what they've chosen to be expressed into in what name. And then when they sit as a man, then they understand the problem of the man, not the glory of the rope they carry. On the 26th of this month, we have one of the well-known gurus who he has invited himself to be here as part of this unification. He is coming with his entourage from India to be with us on 26. Because a lot of leaders, world leaders, a lot of religious leaders know what the technology is offering, and what is this new knowledge is going to bring. But they are fear of the backlash and what they might lose. They will lose nothing because they will receive more. When you are a pope, when you're an imam, you're a rabbi, or you're a high priest in any religion, and you order your nations, your people, your leaders to stop the wars, that your soul has reached a new level, because the suffering which is not created is left for you to receive. This is the change. And there is one thing, everybody talks about the Day of Judgment. The Day of Judgment is you sitting in front of these systems and judging yourself. And as I said before, you are the collection of your past generations. So you set yourself, not yourself, but your past generation in judgment, because what you carry is what you've been given to be what you are as a collection of the past. So Judgment Day is in front of you for yourself. There is no hell, there is no heaven. The hell comes when you have to understand what you have to let go, which has been wrong. The heaven comes when you know you are giving freely and you are in the process to be equal and to be correct. Any questions? I've been talking to myself again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keshe. Do we have any people on the live stream there, Vince, that have any questions? And let me have a look at the live stream and see what's happening as well. Are there anything in the GoToMeeting, Vince?
Make one. Make something else. Make a name you're happy with.
Anybody on GoToMeeting that has a question?
I think a lot of people won't ask any question because now they're asking questioning their own integrity and their own soul.
Yeah.
There is a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions. I was talking to, I don't mention the name, but he knows who he is. And he sent me an email last night that he made a telephone call to Mr. Delanois, the police of Belgium, that why are they doing what they're doing to me and my family? And from what I understand, he received a call from his national security, whatever, the police of his country. So they try to mess everything up to be able to stay alive. Because they know if they have to answer, there's a lot of wrongdoings which needs to be answered. As long as you point the blame at somebody else, something else, then you can walk away the way you lived. There won't be much questions, but the question is how we question ourselves in our previous conducts and the present conducts. We try to go through the Facebook, they're trying to set up a name for the 26th at how you want to organize yourselves. Ask people, take a half a day off and spend and go. As I said before, go to the church, go to the mosque, but face the door and pray for the one who comes in and the ones who pass outside. Why do you go when you go to the house of God, you face one place and you turn your back to the people who are behind you on the street? Those are the ones who need your soul. Those are the ones who need your blessing. The structure is wrong, but the structure cannot be put in the right way either unless we don't decide. I'll give you an example. This if you understand how bad the human behavior is. People who know Keshe Foundation and they were trying to set a Keshe Foundation support and all sorts a couple of years ago, they were looking for a leadership. And I never had a leadership, I always advise. And they got very angry that there is no leadership, there is nobody who can say what we do. What do we have to do? So I set up a meeting. I said all these people, there are about 25, 30 of them in Holland, Germany, wherever, to come to the foundation on a Saturday afternoon. And if you've been to Ninov, Ninov was set in like a quarter circle with 100 seats as a lecture room. What I did, I took all the chairs away and I made the seat as a circle because I knew the intention. I knew what they were after. They wanted to stand in front of the other people and they say who are and why they have to be the bosses and where it's going wrong. When I made the circle, as they came in, they lost their way because there was no head. It wasn't the way they saw, and they were planning to do their program to do what they call a coup d'etat. So they had to sit around, and I moved from one seat to another. So that there was no focal point that somebody's sitting next to me or who's gonna head. And you found there was a total disturbance in the whole behavior. They were like lost ships. And they made that ship themselves. And the worst thing, it came with them, and I could see them in how the ones who came with the intention of whatever they had. I got up, I went to get some water, and I served water to all of them. I took glasses and I took a jar of water and I served them water. And this was beyond their imagination, because a top man never does that. He sits there and he gets served. In serving them, it shocked them. And what you see as pictures, what you see as the advertising of the Keshe Foundation logo came from that meeting. Strange enough, one or two who came to be the boss because they thought it cannot be done, after the meeting, I invited everybody for a dinner to a restaurant we booked beforehand. They refused to come because it wasn't there. They came for something else and they could not be the directors and the bosses and dictating how the foundation goes. Because this foundation will run by totality, not by individuals. This is how it is in the universe. This is how when you're on board of a ship into space, you cannot buy a villa on top floor of the spaceship. And the peasants don't live underneath on the ground floor. You spend time, years and years together in the same environment. And soon you find out animosities and money has no value. This is the future, but the only thing is we change the name of this spaceship to Earth, and because of its size, we become too greedy what we can get onto. You see, a good example of it is the spaceship at the moment, the lab in the space. Americans are fighting Russians, and the Russians are fighting everything else for a piece of land. But when it comes to space, they live in the same box and they take food for each other because it's my turn to take food. And the world leaders of both countries haven't understood. Okay, instead of taking gun into Ukraine, why don't we put all the food and everything else in there? So, see who serves more better the nation, that the nation decides, I take the best of both. Not with guns and fighting. This is the way we have changed, and this is the reason I go for the, not the world leaders, not the religious leaders, but the people as a whole. This thing will not happen overnight. The man will understand what I teach in time to come, because the ones who think it's rubbish, it means they haven't understood the totality of it, or they have something to lose. So you'll find the question will come very hard. If the minute I start talking about reactors, there'll be thousands of questions. Now, any questions?
That's a very good point. You talk about reactors, there'll be thousands of questions. But you talk about what you've been talking about, we all tend to get a little quiet.
No, but this is the way the reality is. I was explaining to you this morning in our telephone conversation, the Skype conversation. So much funds in the past few days gone into protecting the servers from the attacks by governments. Why do governments spend so much time trying to bring the servers down of a foundation which is teaching freely? We don't incite war, we don't incite conflict, we incite sharing of knowledge. Why are we threat to different governments and organizations? Because it shows people who said they have a knowledge, they use the knowledge to control, and now there is no control. This is the reason we attack. This is the reason they attack us on a daily basis. If you've been on the website past week, you've seen how many times they brought us down and we're going back up again. All their time going back up, it costs money, it costs bringing new programs. This is the money we could spend on a lot of other things which we do. And so what happens? No problem. We have to overcome this step for a few times. They've done it to us a few months ago. Now the pressure has become huge through the Belgian governments, and we follow them. The whole process is, why to waste so much time? As I said before, I bless the soul of Mr. Delannoy, I bless the soul of Hans Brackenier, and I bless the soul of ex-King of Belgium. Because through their souls they'll walk into their own ways of correcting themselves. But if we wouldn't have stood our ground, the intimidation and attack on scientists would have carried on. It still carries on. My wife was telling me this morning that the guy who made the engine running on water, they killed him, they poisoned him within a week. Why do we have to kill scientists? Why do we have to kill people who think different way than us? Doesn't matter, scientifically, politically. When you do that, it shows arrogance. It shows that you're not capable, you're afraid of your own self. But the strange thing is, all these people, they do all these things wrong, and the last minute, before they take the last breath, they say, oh God. And they call for the priest to come and give them the last rite, or the imam, or whatever. And that, even giving the last rite, has become another way of stealing, which we don't go into. Doesn't matter what religion you follow and what way you call yourself. If we go into the detail of the last rite or the vow of silence, or a lot of other things, not picking one religion or another, because each one of them has his own pitfalls, the man will be ashamed. Why? All these killings of young girls in different countries, for whatever reason, is not because the girls went wrong. It's just because when you don't know the difference, you don't know how the man is incompetent. All these that the girl has to be whatever before marriage is not done for the girl to be good. It's for the girl not to know how incompetent the man is marrying, because she has no knowledge of past. This is exactly what it is, frightening people with the religions. When you frighten them, they don't know. But open all the books of God. They all speak about peace, love. How to be and how many times you can be close, how closer you are. When you frighten the other side, or threaten them, or fight them, or create war against them, then you have a ground to protect the buildings, whatever you call it, and the bank accounts. I wonder how much Vatican is going to open, or the Islamic religions, or the rabbis, or different religions, or path of their belief in the world, are going to open the bank account. Says this is so much money, there should be no hunger. I'm sure if the religious bank accounts are opened up, all the men on this planet, 7 billion of them, will be billionaires. Now you know how much is hidden in the bank of the religions. God needs no accounts. All the gold the man fights for belongs to him. So where does he banks it on the earth, and they go and take it and steal it from him, and they get the others suffering because of it. So the thieves work in both ways for their own benefit. They already stolen from the God, now steal from the man too. So in the name of different ways of going to God, they steal from both, and they think nobody sees. The question, or we go back to the reactor technology. No, it's wrong.
Is there
Hello?
any
Can we go
game?
to some?
Pardon?
Can we go to some scientific questions?
Yes, you can. This
Yes.
is the
Okay.
extent
Good morning,
of your
Mr. Keshe.
interest with what it is we will do.
Yes, this is Lucian. I
Yes,
wanted
know,
to report you a little bit
Yeah,
on my
you
experiment.
are my, what do you call it?
Spokesman,
I always,
technical
yeah,
spokesman.
I don't have nightmares about you, but I like to see what is cooking in the pot.
Nemesis comes
Yes,
to
so-
mind.
No, it's good. Let's see what is in the pot.
Okay, so as you know, from the last, I think at least 3 workshops, we had together two issues. Number one, covering some copper coil with copper oxide, and after that putting the sp3 to insulate it and being able to use it into the air. And the two unit cell. So basically I'm removing since about 2 weeks whatever is that on the top. I'm guessing
Pardon?
zinc.
Repeat that again, please.
So in the last about 2 weeks, I removed from the tanks the upper layer, which is probably zinc GaNs and some sort of fat thing, protein or whatever is that.
Yeah.
So what is interesting is that in the other plastic container in which I'm storing the product, the level of the top layer is not increasing. And secondly, into the liquid, I can see, and I will do some pictures and send to the guys and to you, some, how to say, it's like you throw a hand of diamonds into the water. There are some very tiny points that are, I don't know, could be carbon sp3 or hydrogen sp3. They are shining, and it's like, little diamonds into the water. And it's, when you put light into it, you can see it very clearly. So I'm just wondering.
Okay, go back again. What you did, you took the fat from the top layer.
Yes, and the upper layer, which probably is zinc GaNs, I guess. It's a layer that is on the top of the water.
Yeah.
And since 2 weeks, I just collect them every day.
Yeah.
So I guess was that in the tank, I'm, how to say, dropping it. The upper layer should increase in thickness.
Where? The one you separated?
Yes, exactly.
You shouldn't, because when you take the material out of the tank, you stop the process of the information carrying. The rate of the production of that fat on the top is correspondent to the nano gas materials which you release and produce in the liquid according to the current flow in the plasmatic level. So when you take your fat away, there is no increase because there is no production. There is no current flow.
Right, but in the tank, I'm storing the product.
Yeah, because there is no. If you store it in the tank and there is no current flow in the tank, in the liquid or in the fat, you have stopped the process in respect to the condition which was created and it was getting held on to. You have changed the environment with no flow. The fat creation comes from the absorption of the CO2 into the, or by getting the CO2 getting attracted to the water, in the process changing, releasing hydrogen, the nitrogen and the carbon, producing the amino acid. And that is done because of the potential difference in the gravitational magnetic field you create between the direction of the flow of the current. This is something which a lot of I don't know, maybe it's not understood fully. When you put these systems into one electrode into the other cup and another electrode to the other cup, you connect them up. Because this is the gravitational magnetic field system, your gases are literally layers of plasma on top of each other in flat form. One of your electrodes is the south pole and the other electrode is the north pole. There is a flow of plasmatic gravitational magnetic field between the poles, which some of it in reduction becomes weak enough to vibrate the electrons in the other electrode. You don't have a current flow of electrons the way you do in plating. You have the current flow of plasma. And that's gravitational magnetic field they release. So when you take the fat off the top, there is no flow, there is no production. So it will never grow. I'm running what is called, it's 4 bottles in a box, and I think 3 bottles now. And they've been going for 2 years now, what you're trying to do. But I did not leave it in the box on its own. I created the environment of the earth around the boxes. I've shown it to the knowledge seekers, they've seen it. And you lead to production of new condition and environment. You cannot just take it out and leave it there and see what happens. And it doesn't grow. Of course it doesn't grow. Unless it's a plasmatic environment, which the fat becomes part of it. And then what happens? You see crystals in the water where you took the fat off. Hello?
Yes,
we
I said
lost?
something like little spheres, like diamonds.
Yeah.
So when you put light from a side, they are shining like diamonds in the water.
Yeah, but look at the way they drop and how they start.
They don't drop. They are like a suspension into the water.
No, and
they float.
that instance, they don't drop. But most of the time, you see them getting created and literally flowing to where they find a balance somewhere near the bottom, and then you get a new one coming. Every single one is a CO2 majority of the time, in the condition of the Earth atmospheric. So the crystals you see is literally, that's why they're bright. That color is part of, like a carbon part of the CO2, but it's actually a molecule GaNs, not the atomic GaNs, what do you call it, the strength. If you separate, like if you use, if you're producing copper oxide nanos, if you clearly look in detail in it, you'll find out some CO2 in it. It's not all green. It is partially some others in it.
Okay.
Don't forget, you change the environment continuously. Marco came up with a very logical process a couple of days ago, because we've seen reduction in production of CO2. And Marco said the problem is that we keep on adding salt water to these containers, but it's getting saturated. Plus what we get evaporation is becoming a salt lake. So as we take out the material, the concentration of the salt is becoming more, and maybe that's why we are losing, not producing so much. So he decided that from now on he starts adding water without any salt in it, to change the dilution. So maybe now we see a different way in the production. But these are all the conditions we create and the way things are. I've seen this, what you're talking about. Actually, if you take it out, try to get the syringe and take these floating things out and put them in a container, plastic see-through container, collect as much as you can. Then you find out after a few hours or so, they will go down and they settle. And they're white and they're like CO2, if I'm correct. We are running a test with some organizations at the moment. You will find out that most of these materials, what you call GaNs, do not, settle. They'll float in the liquid. Because we were trying to, they paid about €500 for testing one test, but we couldn't get the material in the liquid to settle that the machines could read. If you create the right environmental gravitational magnetic field, these things will float. They are just like stars. Change the salt condition, you'll see you find a different proposition. Just take a syringe and that's what we do. Take a syringe and don't go to the bottom to collect what's in the bottom. Take some from the middle. and then collect enough to see that what you see. They are usually to do with what do you call it? With the material which are floating and getting converted coming from the top. The process you have started in your cups is the same process as the Earth. Nitrogen gets built on the top, gets absorbed as a field from the environment of the solar system, and then it floats and comes down, but in a different form of atomic structure. So now you do the same thing, but you create an environment that it stays as a plasma. The threshold is that just the surface which you see the fat. The threshold of conversion from matter to GANs is that layer, that surface. You actually, if you are very, very, very precise, you will see that GANs production does not come into operation till that separation layer is created. It's so fine that you don't see it. But if you start looking around your boxes, you see shadows of it. The CO2 doesn't just jump into the water. It's like it goes through the membrane of that fat, which leads to itself to become the carbon, the protein. It's a very, very, very fine, even in the containers you see nothing, there is still a fine thin layer.
Okay, so the second part of the experiment was to take the copper coils that were coated with copper oxide and, so to speak, excite them with the output from the two saltwater cells. And it is exactly what you said. There is no current.
You start releasing a lot of gases?
No, I connected the coil, the copper coil, which was covered with copper oxide, as a load to the cells. And I was putting an oscilloscope on it. And it's happening exactly what you said. We go to like 1 volts DC, and we have about between 20 to 100 millivolts AC. If you are familiar with the Bedini-Burden device, it's exactly the same spikes as what they're calling pointing vector, pointing energy. So there is, as you said, no current because there is no electron flow current. Is taking the energy either probably from the cups or from the environment. So I will post some oscillograms to the group and to you. So in this respect, you're right. There is energy, but not electron movement.
No, the energy comes through the plasma conversion, and whatever reaches the matter level of the electron will show itself as an electronic, what they call electrical current. But the plasma current is much more powerful if you can do it and you can control it. I will teach you how to do it. It's a beautiful thing. This is why I'm still waiting for our Italian manufacturer of the energy system to deliver us the prototypes. They were supposed to do this week. I doubt it. But that's the process we use, that we walk away from the wire connection. Wi-Fi is an electromagnetic connection of carrying information, or your, what do you call it, wireless system. In the energy system, we use the plasmatic, which is gravitational magnetic field. And the system they're supposed to deliver to us, if God knows whenever they do, is two systems. It's very much, as I said, which this week Marco and Armand been doing. They change energy in one of a certain amount of volume of gas, very small in one, and the other reactor picks it up. If we change or build a system which changes for the present time, for the time being, the plasmatic magnetic gravitational field energy or current into the matter current, you'll find out a very small reactor can supply the whole of your house. The problem is, and I know how to sort it out, to convert once your system receives the energy from your generator to the amount of the power you need for your laptops or whatever, and no more. And then you see this behavior of the plasmatic energy is what we talked about before. How many LED lights you could put next to each other and light up. As the system needs it, it supplies it. We we did a test a few years ago with a copper cooling system of the laptops. You know how the copper cooling system is just one drop of whatever it is and it floats between one end to the other and the fan blows the heat away from the chips. What we did, we we put this cooling system in the nanomaterial, and I cut the pipe, the feeder between the chip and the cooling system, the fans, and nano coated as well. You will find there is more energy in the tube of the cooling system than actually is coming out of the out of the electronic gadget. So in a way you can feed it. You don't need a power supply. The cooling system, if you can convert it into plasma, become the power supply to the chip instead of taking energy from it. But that way, because there's no surplus energy, you don't get heating of the chips either. We've done some tests on this before. I'll try to give that to show to the, if I find it, to the knowledge seekers to put a picture up. The cooling system you have in your laptops, where you hear your fan going, is totally copper, which is connected to the main chip. I don't understand the computer structure, but we had to open it to understand it. And I went and I bought a few to test. You'll find out you can do with much cheaper way to supply and work with these cooling systems, if now you understand the process of nanotechnology. Any other
So
questions?
is that due to being in contact with the chip itself, the cooling system?
You can't put it in contact. You can't contact nanomaterials. You bring them to the proximity. Don't forget, as much as you transfer energy, these nano-coated materials are superconductors. They just don't take information. They take heat too. But because of their atmospheric environment, what we call magnetical, you can never connect them. You can put them as close as you can, but if you look close enough, they create a layer of that. They absorb only magnetic field of what is according to their strength. They're one of the best heat transfers.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah, they're not just electronically superconducted. There are heat transfer superconductors too.
So we did have a question from Ad on the GoToMeeting. I don't think he can speak, but I sent a picture on the Google Drive so that it could be explained when I ask the question. Are you able to see that picture, Mr. Kesh?
Yes, it's on Arman's laptop. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Explain what.
Well, I'll ask the question for Ad here, and we'll see.
Just 1 second. 1 second before you ask your question. Please set up this Facebook. You gotta give it. What is it? Let's see, accept. Okay. Okay, no problem. Carry on. Rick, can you please
Okay.
set that up? If you got, sorry about that, Rick, if you're listening to it, can you set up that Facebook which Arman has sent you, if it's possible, please, and put it up? Okay, pick up what you think and let it out, because we need it. Whatever we need it to go up, that people can correspond to organize the thing in, please, before I close. I'll leave it to you. Okay, carry on. Carry on. Sorry about that, Vince.
Okay, sorry. So Ad is asking about the ring magnets and the coated copper wire. If it is possible to use it as to make magnetic pressure in the core with the help of the sp2 and the transitional matter of the gas.
I don't understand. Repeat.
I
What's
think
on the left?
I've had this
What is on the left?
I think
It's
that
like
one is,
rings on top of each other.
yeah, I think those are ring magnets. So
Okay.
he's wondering if let's just say you have a ring magnet and you have a coated copper wire through it, would the ring magnet in that kind of formation, as being a bigger or stronger magnet to a weaker magnet, which causes a difference in pressure, I guess you would call it, and so he's wondering if that would propagate or allow the matters to be able to be propagated around or across or through the coated copper wire through the ring magnets.
I've done this, but I can't remember
Make a
the
magnetic
result.
pressure.
I've done this because the reason I did it was years ago. The reason I did it, I wanted to know if I can suspend a nano-coated wire in the ring magnet. And I can't remember the result. Because what happened, what we done here in the lab is that I make what they call plasmatic guns. Plasmatic guns are very effective things to test if you know what you're doing, but they give you the nearest things to the behavior of a plasma. So I'm making one with 4 of them. It's been there for 2-3 weeks now. I haven't managed to fix it. Is that you take a big ring, exactly the way in this picture, but extend it to the other end as well.
Right, so the same size throughout without...
The same size rings, yeah, because here we have a large bank of magnets. I have here, God knows, thousands of magnets, so it gives me possibility to test things. And I did this test. I thought, I wanted to know, I can't remember, to put a coated wire through this plasma. And I think it was suspended, but we couldn't see it somehow. But in a way, it should create a current in the wire, because the wire as a nanomaterial, it only transfers the plasma. And when you put these ring magnets, don't forget there is a big difference between a solid magnet and a ring magnet. With a ring magnet, you create a condition where the what you call like a principal field sits in the hollow section.
Right, because they would be pulling that matter, or it'd be creating a singularity, or in between, right in the center.
In a sense, but there is a way to build. Nobody has managed to build it. Because I think you get a totally different kind of magnetic field flow, very much more plasmatic. Is that these ring magnets are always have a cut edge. They have a north and a south. Yeah? What about if these ring magnets were like a wire tubes? You understand?
You're talking about like a tube of copper?
No, a tube of magnet. Tube of magnets, and you can make it in different diameters, because then you don't have a north and south. When you have a tube, it's a different way than having a Because the minute you cut these magnets, you give them a north and a south pole. One side become entry and one side become exit. But if you can make like a copper wire by shape. Pardon?
Do you mean in an infinity loop? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but closed infinity loop.
Right.
Not an infinity loop, it's just like a ring, but instead of being, you know, when you cut one of these ring magnets, if you cut a cross section, is a square or rectangular. If the cross section was circle, then you get them closest to it. I looked at this thing a few times, but you always get. It's like the magnetic balls. They sell to you a spherical magnetic ball, but in fact inside it there is a magnet with the polarity.
So, Mr. Keshe, I had some magnets from microwave ovens, and they are cylindrical in section. Yeah. They are not square.
Yeah.
They're circular.
Right. No, Lucian, I think he's talking.
Yeah,
about
but is there a hole in it?
It looks like a rectangular, right?
But is there a hole in it? Because you have magnets which are not rectangular or whatever, but is there a hole inside it? The magnet with a hole inside behaves totally different than the magnets which is solid and the rectangular magnet.
Right, but there's also a difference there too, Mr. Keshe, when you can have the South Pole inside and the North Pole outside, or the North Pole on the top and the South Pole on the bottom, even though there is a center area. Which type are you talking about? You're talking about the North Pole in the center, or the South Pole in the center, and the other opposite.
No.
The outside?
Would you be talking about a hollow donut-shaped magnet?
Hollow donut, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
A hollow donut, but in a solid form, not in a plasma form or a magnetically induced condition. If you can find I would love to get hold of a hollow donut magnets, and then you see if you can still make them and glue them together the way you've done. Where is the south, where is the north, or the current flow of the plasma?
There was a structure that was made several years ago for a fusion-type reactor where they used hollow donuts, stainless steel donuts, arranged like 6 of them, I think, to try to confine the plasma.
Yeah, but they induce a field magnetically, electronically, by the electrical current.
Yes, that's right.
You can't do it with a solid. I haven't seen it. Maybe I haven't looked in the right place. But it'll be very interesting if you put donuts next to each other. Do they still stick the way the magnets with polarity do?
Well, here's an idea that I've run across that I think that is what you're talking about. If you think of what you're talking about and that picture that we're actually showing on the live stream now of the cylinders and so on, but you reduce that to the nano scale, and they're finding
out... Still got the north and south.
Well, they find out, for example, at the tip of a gold nanorod, there is a vortex magnetic swirling, they call it a solitron, or it's got a special name for the magnetic vortex that's formed at the tip of a gold or some other types of metal nanorods. And that's what, for example, with gold nanorods, when you have a trillion of them per square centimeter, they have this effect of being diamagnetic. It repels a magnetic field hundreds of times more powerful than gold does naturally, because of that nanorod structure that they can make with it.
No, if you think of it, now that you understand the difference between the nano and the matter, the nanomaterials are magnetic field traps. So when you put matter is not magnetic. But when you put nano, material, so many of them, you create a field interaction between each one. So that's very obvious, because now you have it's literally you putting a lot of magnets, but in a plasma form in front of it, because they can't see the plasma. They never understood the structure of the nanomaterial to be to be plasmatic gaps. That's why they think it's strange, or it is much more. When you have we put this picture out a couple of weeks ago, I think John did. When you have nano layers, the separation, the gap between the atoms is due to magnetic gravitational strength of the material, the atoms. So that gap, that separation is more powerful magnetic fields because it's from both of them than actually most probably in this in the edges of the nanomaterial. That's why you cannot weld nanomaterials. You cannot solder it, because that magnetic field does not allow the two to come together to bridge that gap. It's just you trying to get to the Earth when you're in the wrong angle, or the strength of the magnetic gravitational field of the Earth is too strong, it bounces you back. It's exactly the same condition. So when you put
so Mr. Keshe, I would like to interrupt you just a second here. How this will interact with water molecules? Because we know that water has very weak hydrogen bonds between the two water clusters, and this nanomaterial, CO2 or zinc or copper, whatever copper, is going to even more space it. So what is your opinion on this?
A space what? The water?
So, yes, water has nanoclusters. That means they have a weak hydrogen bond between them, at least at the surface. So in the moment, let's say you introduce the CO2 gas, as you said, is created into the salted solution, and probably copper gas and probably zinc gas, these, let's say, molecules are interfering with the hydrogen bond and, how to say, it's spacing it even more, if I'm right.
In a way, you're right. In a way, that's how you change and produce the fat on the top. You create a weak bond which immediately links up with the nitrogen and the carbon. I looked at this because it was very funny. Armin came 2-3 days ago, last week, and he was happily ever after sitting in front of this generator power supply and 2 nanomaterials and what do you call it? He was showing that what do you call it? He can make the copper wire thinner, and in the process he was so happy. He was flashing a lighter on top of the cup, and it was catching fire, just like a little burst of fire explosion. And if you increase the process of that, you will find out you get methane. The combination of the water and the carbon and the hydrogen from the water, the process of absorbing the CO2 instantaneously can lead to release of the, what do you call it, CH4, which catches fire. Or sometimes it's so fast that you only release the hydrogen. And that if that hydrogen is an atomic level, you release it the right way, you lead to the production of, becomes atomic, so it links up with the carbon and oxygen and the nitrogen, and it leads to production of the fat on the top. The only reason you get a fat on the top, because that's where the nitrogen manages to come close enough to the surface. You don't get the fat inside. And that's why sometimes if the current flow between your electrodes, you find some of your boxes produce totally different, what I call this fat layer than the one next door, or a couple of boxes, blocks later down the unit. It's the condition you create and how you create it, but the condition you create can allow the production of the materials like hydrogen, atomic hydrogen. And Armin was happily ever after sitting on top of it. And I explained to him yesterday, the day before, actually, if you do not understand the control of the system and you release it, and you happen to release it the wrong way because you can create the right environment for it, you release the energy of one hydrogen atom instantly, and it's horrendous. And I always say, one electron, one proton, is visible for billions of years. So you can imagine how much energy is hidden inside it. But always considering energy is gravitational.
Yes, so you're right.
Carry on.
For example, in the cups with one electrode being iron coated with zinc, it's producing very little fat. And in the other cell in which one electrode is full zinc, zinc by itself, is creating a lot of fat.
Yes, but you have to see what is the current from what environment you are in. We're going to run a test. We were a bit too late by the time the set was made by Armin. Hopefully next week or so, he's setting up another set that we will not, we create an environment only hydrogen to be in the environment of the box. So there is no possibility of nitrogen or anything else. There are two ways to do it. You buy yourself a huge vacuum pump and a big glass thick wall, and you vacuum the air out of it, and then you feed in the hydrogen, or you put enough hydrogen that the hydrogen blows whatever is in the box out, and then it's only hydrogen, and then you add your system, or you start your system off. We did this test in Belgium in the nuclear center. They have a 1 meter by 1 meter cubic tank which you can vacuum it. You put your material there and you can add whatever gases you like. And as I said this before, that's how we knew that the nano layers absorb carbon by afterward burning them, because there was no chances of any process starting except the carbon which was in the environment of the tank and from the Coca-Cola bottle. And by 8% carbon was trapped between the layers. We're going to release hopefully a very interesting data. They're sitting with me for a week, 10 days, but I'm waiting for the lab to finish their final tests. I was told by Friday it'll be ready. It's a very interesting position in the pollution industry. How you can convert pollutants into useful materials. Any other question?
That would be pretty interesting. Like you're talking about converting the actual pollutants. Of course, we've always heard about the CO2, which they consider as a pollutant, but you're talking about the rest of the pollutants as well, to be able to
nitrites, zinc,
extract
and all
it. Yeah.
sorts. Yeah. At the moment we are running
just like the CO2, though, right?
Yeah, it's more or less like CO2, but you have to create the right condition to absorb it. We are doing some tests with live bacteria and that kind of thing, and oxygen level in the level in relation to the bacteria. So the test should be out within the next 48 hours. Is paid for by one of the foundation supporters. They paid for the whole trial. Cost I think 3,000-4,000 euro. But we're looking at 14 or 16 different parameters within the conversion of the pollutant in the water. I've received I think about 11 of them last week. We had 3 more major ones.
Would this be using a live bacteria to be able to do that as well? Because I've seen people on one person specifically on Facebook, Alex. He's coated a lot of things and put them all in
orange.
the bucket.
I've seen orange skin. I've seen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Caroline keeps on coming to me. Says, have you seen this one?
Yeah, it's always.
I told you. I think he's a young boy. He is, isn't it?
I think so, but there's also Carl Lee, and he's in China, I do believe, and he's doing his own types of experiments, and he's got some pretty interesting pictures as well. But so this using the pollutants as converting it into a useful material, these trials were done from a bacteria, creating so the bacteria would
We are
create the
looking
gas.
at different ways. This partially started with the Fukushima test. A lot of people, I saw somebody putting things, a lot of rubbish all over the place. We don't know the difference between becquerel and becquerel per kilogram. We know exactly why the things are there because I had a long discussion with Marek regarding what I wanted. Because part of these
Yeah,
samples
we usually
done.
don't listen to those people because I don't
No,
think they
but the thing
understand.
is, because it's the lack of their knowledge in a way. Because when you have such a small amount of material, becquerel per kilogram is irrelevant, whatever you count it. You go for the counts and you look at that way. Because in Fukushima position, we were looking for the radiation levels, not in such a small amount. Because by the time we diluted and we separated and we diluted, the whole thing went through the wall. The important thing was to see if the radiation level changes and the cesium, cesium can be converted. I have explained the reason why in Fukushima you see the reduction in gamma rays. The only reason that you saw reductions and they said that you destroy or you take or you change in radioactive materials, no, because gamma rays are electromagnetic fields and you have a plasma of a GANs. So that's natural that the fields get attracted to the source. That's why you saw the reduction and nobody understood. I explained this to the nuclear physicists of a couple of countries recently. Because to them,
Right, and that sorry, but
the
that
reduction,
that reduction is also in the production of the gold from the mercury that's in there as well, isn't that right?
yes, it's the same process. The reduction in, you'll find out when they do, that's why now there's extensive, it's about 3 weeks now. Tests are going at a very, very detailed level in respect to the property of the gases. You'll find out that the GANs materials are very effective with gamma rays, but they are not so effective with alpha and beta. And the reason you see huge drops in Fukushima experiment is just because in reality what you lose is not magic, because it's the first time we're producing and releasing plasmatic entities or atoms or molecules in the water due to the gravitational magnetic field of the GANs. The radiation which is released by the radioactive material in a gamma level strength are attracted and absorbed by the GANs material, and they think,
Right, but
oh,
the
it's
GANS
something.
material would be GANS material is a transitional material anyways. So
They are
wouldn't
not
that mean that
transitional.
it's
No,
at a
no, 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 no. Matter is a transitional, not GANs. Matter is transitional. When you come to a state of the matter, is that you reach that state, and then when the strength of the gravitational magnetic field changes, you go to submatter. That's transition. That's why you get
okay,
like
right.
nuclear decay. But the gases stay GANs because they are a plasma.
But
If
they're
you
at a
look,
higher
if you let me, no,
order
no, no, no,
of
no, let me clarify something, please. Let me clarify something.
okay.
If you keep the GANs material long enough in a position that they can release their energy, even your GANs material will change color. Because it takes a new gravitational magnetic field strength, which in respect to its environment, that interaction creates different color to observe. Don't forget, doesn't matter what you use as an electrode, a copper, a nickel, a gold, whatever. When you nanocoat, it's all black. When it's in nano state. Because it's not the matter which is black. It's the gravitational magnetic field which is underneath the top layer amongst the multi-thousand million layers, which absorbs all the electromagnetic fields. When you release the atomic nano, then it takes its own shape because now it's independent. And when this thing changes color, changes its field strength, it will change color in respect to the point of view. This is what I said earlier on. We see the same process now in the lab. Copper oxide, which is green, in the see-through glass, is becoming creamish white, which is correct. It's exactly the color of the brain. And I explained to you why. I explained this to knowledge seekers a couple of, I think last week or whatever. When the fetus is developed in the womb of the mother, there is no brain. This lump of meat, of flesh, or amino acid, blood, whatever you want to call it. When the confinement of the structure of the brain, that spherical condition or semi-spherical condition, creates the return of the fields from all over back to the center, which all the fields from the material give, converts the matter of the blood or flesh which is in that fetus to the level which is become the nerve. This is very fundamental. It's very important to understand. It's the confinement condition which allows the matter to change from one state to another in the Ganser state. So then as it changes in that position, then you get the what you call the creamish or whatever nano coating of the brain cells. And that's why even the brain cells are made of what do you call it, amino acids, because they originated it, but the field strength is slightly different, so you get different color. We're seeing that conversion from copper oxide to the creamish color, which is more or less the color of the brain, already in the lab, on the table upstairs. The reason being is that if you've done enough tests the way I have done, and it was a mystery for me for quite a long time in the health section, is that you don't have nerves in the tissues everywhere. But how do they communicate? Actually, the communication line in the muscle tissue is copper. If you have a neuro damage, which you cannot reach in the muscle tissue, that's where copper, as a copper GANs, does most of the communication when there are no nerves. Different pressures on it, that's why the minute you touch yourself, you feel it. Because where the flashes, if you are near the nerve, even the nerves get that kind of change in the small change in the copper content of the tissue. Copper is a neural connection. So when you have a fetus with all the muscles, tissue like with copper in it, when it's confined to the brain, what do you call it, cavity, you start seeing the production of the brain. Even though you don't see the physical structure of what do you call it, calcium structure of the, what do you call it, full structure of the skull. But because atomically and nanolayerly these are already built up, they create a condition for conversion of the copper in the as an oxide to convert into the brain. The same thing goes with the, what do you call it, why in the future I explain the difference why the intestines have their own brain cells. It's the same structure, it's the same neurons, because the confinement of the gap in your stomach, it doesn't matter partially is your bones or your ribs, and what do you call it, the layer of your stomach outside, the skin, in that environment you create a reactor, which that reactor, according to what is there, allows the creation of neurons. That's what they say. The stomach has it's got its own brain. The other places they produce it, but if you look at it, if you chop the head off, you have a reactor on the top called where it holds the brain, which has gone through the same process, and then you have another reactor which is holding your systems, which you call it intestine. Understand? I keep on explaining to the knowledge seekers. Understand the structure, then you see why. You're used to seeing your belly and you say, oh, it's just the skin. But in fact, the cavity, what the skin has created, allows soft tissues to be developed. Your kidney is not made of iron, and your liver is not thing, because this environmental gravitational magnetic field which the skin allows creation of soft tissues. That's why you don't see bones in the middle of it. That's why you don't see bone in the middle of the brain, even though there is one piece. But that's created a totally different way, and we know why. Understand it. Now you understand the plasma, you understand the structure of the reactors, understand the structure of the life. You don't literally need the whole intestine and digestion system if you know how to get the energy to the brain for the functioning of the emotion to exist, and then the soul exists with it. This is a separation where the things happen, where the gravitational magnetic field of the skin itself, in its 3 layers, creates a confined field inside it, which according to what fields of the energy comes in it, converts at the specific position in that area because of it's the skin. Look where your liver is, and look at the bones around the liver. Look at the heart, and look at the bone structure around it. If you take the bones away totally, you will not get the same shape, lungs. Because the skin is there, but they create, everything has an interconnection. You have to understand the interconnection and how they are done. The body of a man in his middle part, why don't you have liver and your, God knows, kidneys, other systems in your legs? You create an environment, so now in this reactor you put gases. You put helium, you put this, but the control through the glands which are there, control the same system. Your glands are exactly like a control system in your reactors. But you have to understand how they interconnect and how being connected to each other. Sometimes they work on their own and sometimes work with the information from somewhere else. There is no difference in the levels of creation in any level. It's just understanding how its connection comes. Another question?
Yes,
give the
Mr.
phone.
Kish, I wanted to go a little
Sure.
back in the back when you explained the change of color in containers and confinement. And I was thinking that for the purpose of learning, probably a good experiment, I mean, if you think that this could be to connect the electrodes of each plastic tank to some sort of ring and just spin in some way the container, so you can create movement and you could see some changes in magnetic fields around the container. This makes sense for you?
This was done by a woman in south of France with one of our medical systems. But one of the health system, she did that, and the results were very strange for her. You can do that. You know what you actually you're doing. You're creating the same thing as a generator with a copper coil around it.
Okay, I'll work on it and report you the results. Okay.
You show us. There's no problem, because what we did here last week, Armand made I explained to you with like a flower with a center, and I think it's 9 like pebbles around it, and he connected all the things to one center, and the other electrode was all connected outside ring together. And after 2-3 days, he said, "No, it's not working," so he demolished it. And if you could rotate the center core parameter, you will see how the difference. No difference between that and the dynamic system you have in your reactors. There is something interesting. I think John is not here, but I can explain this to you. As you know, John, we're gone with John is doing a closed ceramic bowl where we introduce GaNs into it, copper oxide, and Armand has done the same kind of test through transparent motor, a small one. He's put the pictures up. What we have seen in Armand's last week was Armand has got 2 different materials in his core. One material sticks to the wall, and one material goes up and down in between, which the rotation allows it, and the water stays at the bottom, which is a different understanding. And what happened is that usually when you even centrifuge it that way, you should get the whole material going equally across the what do you call it, the bowl internally. What we saw with the test with Armand was the band is created of one material out inside the ring, inside the bowl, and then the other GaNs comes and flies inside it, and when you switch it off, it goes back and mixes with the water. But the water will never come up. Yesterday we had some problem past couple of weeks with the unit which John has made, the ceramic one. So I took it to our people who do the development for us, and trying to centralize it to stop this thing shaking. It was shaking violently. It wasn't doing the right thing, and it was cutting in the ceramic. And when we were cutting, one pole or one end of the reactor just snapped off. So we lost the core. But there was a lot of questions and talks that if these ceramics are always full, there is no holes in them, and John says no, they're absolutely, they're holeless. We discussed that a couple of weeks ago. And when we start actually smoothing the thing up to centralize it, we start seeing holes in the structure. So it means ceramics were holding cavities. But then when it broke and we looked, was that the ceramic were not glazed completely, so most of the moisture is gone. And then Armand, being Armand, says, let's break it and have a look what's inside. So we broke the sphere, and what we saw was exactly the same pattern of the structure as in Armand, that the material stick only to one band and the other top and bottom is totally clean, or what do you call it, no, not that much material on it. You see the band. I think they've taken the pictures of it. You will see it already been posted. So the GaNs material sticks to the wall partially because of the centrifuge and pressing, and partially once one is stuck, the others gravitational magnetic field stick to each other. But you see the interaction of GaNs in respect to their magnetic gravitational field strength. So now we're going to cut with the material which Armand has brought himself from America, a transparent core, to study this behavior. It'll take us a few weeks to get it cut the way we want it, but this will give us an indication of seeing actually what we don't see with the cores at the moment. You can use anything, but this is an experimental reactor we're going to build, that it's going to be centralized completely. So you see the interaction of the fields class, what do you call different ganses in respect to each other. We always considered matters and gases in respect to the GANs. Now that we open the plasma, we open the reactor, now we know our nanocode materials in the center are useless because they actually got coated more or less with the GANs. So what do? Partially do they hold to the plasma in the center, but we got to see and understand furthermore what it is. It's all part of learning. I think the knowledge seekers will post the pictures up. I'm going to give the. If there is no question, I'm
So
going
a
to
very
give
short question. I
Yeah.
understand that Arman's reactor was not vacuumed; it was closed at atmospheric pressure.
No, just close atmospheric. He's a doctor at the moment. He's using syringes, injecting in and injecting out. He'll become a very good nurse.
Okay, so it's atmospheric.
Yeah. We cannot vacuum guns at this stage, because then we'll suck the material into the vacuum pump and reserve tanks. We are planning 3 or 4 reactors with ceramic. They already start building the structure in the factory yesterday. Then we see the interaction of if it's different ceramic than the thing, than a metallic and plastic reactors, because that's one of the things we don't have a knowledge of. Any other question, or I'll pass it on to Marco. Marco has been busy calibrating.
I have one question.
Yes.
Last workshop you spoke about John's reactor and controlling the strength of the plasma of the gravitational system, and I talked with him for about an hour and he couldn't really explain it to me. How do you change the actual gravity strength and then the size of the field? How is that done as far as controlling the plasma strength with that reactor?
That reactor has a center electrode. He has a center electrode coated with actually glued on with nanomaterials. He glued his material on it. So you already have a gravitational magnetic field center point in the center of the reactor. And depending on the flow of the field in the nanomaterial and the interaction, on just a very small area, the gravitational field, magnetic field of the plasma changes up, inwards or outwards. That's a very special way we put this thing in. We know the ionization. Once you establish your plasma, the ionization region is microns in what gas rotates around the center core. What do you call it? This central column. We had to do it because just putting gases on their own without radioactive material, you cannot ionize. But the interesting breakthrough with this experiments has been that you can create a cold plasma condition from the interaction of hydrogen and nanolayers, which is logical. Now that we don't do this, very, very logical. But then we create a layer of gases with different layers to create a compression and release of what do you call it? Centralization process. And then the hydrogen, and that adds to it. The results are interesting coming up. Marco will explain to you what he's been doing and what the outcome has been for past week. I hand over the.
Do you want to know what the message is for? What do we want to tell people about the beach is about?
In a minute, after Marco says, okay. Have they registered it?
Yes, I started.
They're in the process.
He's starting it.
Yes,
but
okay.
They want to know what to put specific for what.
In a minute, I'll tell them. Just tell them to register it. It's okay. Yeah. Okay. Hold on.
Okay, hello friend. What can I say? Mr. Cash has told almost everything what we are doing. Can I talk about epilepsy also? Or
He didn't
okay.
tell us what you guys had for breakfast, so.
Oh, today
yeah,
it was
breakfast. Yeah.
today it was too
Now you
early
can
for
relieve,
us.
relieve some secrets where from you buy your Illy espresso coffee, not at $20 a can.
Italy is easy.
Well, yes, in last week we were doing measurements of one of the reactors in our setup. It's reactor E. It's very spherical stainless steel reactor. We talked also last week about that, and actually we put magnetic field detector at this reactor, and we have another detector which is positioned in the central sphere reactor, actually at the center of the star formation, and we are adding different gases to our stainless steel reactor, and when we add some gas, we measure magnetic field each time. We actually we put inside quite a lot of gases. We went up to 50 measures of argon on the outer layer. We went also up to 14 measures of nitrogen as intermediate layer, and 11 helium measures in the another layer, and it was about I think 15 measures of hydrogen also. So step by step we added these gases, and each time we measured fields, and we observed how the fields are changing. So we put down to our records all these measurements so that we can now study the behavior of our reactors. And well, we observed some differences. There were not big differences, but there are observable differences. And then we also put our reactor to different positions in the star formation and measure the fields in that positions. And with this positioning, we observe much bigger changes. Depends where the reactor was sitting. We observed that when we put reactor near to reactor A, this is John ceramic reactor, we observe increase of the fields. When we put reactor near to Armand's reactor, there was decreasing of the fields. And we can find out this pattern of changing. So it's very obviously that when we change something, fields are changing, but not only at the measurement point in the reactor E, but also in the center reactor. So there is some correlation. Whenever we change something, there is change also in the middle reactor. So that is what Mr. Cash was talking about before, about connections and about connections of the soul. And well, this is most important thing that we can learn out of this measuring, that everything is connected, and whatever we do, there is influence on other things. So in a way, I understand everything is connected, not only reactors, but also reactors with surrounding and reactors with people. We have opportunity here to work with reactors and to observe these changes, but you can do these observations also yourself. You can observe yourself and behavior when you interact with other people. We can say also each person is a reactor on its own. And it's like the dynamic reactor. The conditions are changing all the time. And you can do testings on yourself and with people that you're interacting with. And we talked about giving and receiving. We did these tests also here. We tried to give whatever we want to the reactor, and we observed the measurement of magnetic fields, and we received. We want to receive whatever reactor wants to give us, and there was some observable change. Mr. Cash also talked about this when Arman was near the reactor. I was observing the magnetic field detector, and I observed that change of the field. So there is obvious interaction. But in a way, if you're not used to do this, and we are a little bit not openly share everything. So most probably that's why the interaction is limited. And in a way, that's what we want to learn here, how to interact with these fields. And this is talking about this understanding of the soul also, how souls interact. Actually, we started to understand this, and at the moment, my understanding is that everything interacts with everything. What is also important, maybe about giving and about unconditional giving, where you don't expect anything to get back when you give something. Because the rule of the universe is when you give, you will get back. There is two ways. There is not only one way. And you can trust you will get back whatever you give away. You will get something other, some other thing back. So people are often talking about giving, and they are using different words to define this giving. But is it really unconditional giving? What about giving? Maybe it's interesting also. I was thinking yesterday in the evening about this unconditional giving, and I was comparing this in the relationship between men and women, and maybe in sexual relation, who is giving and who is receiving at this relation. And sometimes there is misunderstanding about who is giving and who is receiving, who is giving and who is receiving energy at sexual relation. Well, it's two-way all the time, but sometimes, from my experience, I observe that women misunderstand this giving, and they want more and more, and they expect something more.
Wait until you get married. Work it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is dangerous territory, Marco.
Yeah. I will not go to this anymore because there are different understanding about this. And maybe my English is not
And after
so...
Channel 5 or Christian Dior will kill you at the banking.
Well, I don't know the guy, so I cannot comment on this. Anyway, yes, about blue brain that we have here, Mr. Cash already talked about this. We observe changes on the outer layers. Blue color is changing to white to creamish color. And actually we observe here process of life. How is it changing? This is not fast process, it's a slow process. If you observe the life of a child, well, you need 9 months to get a child to get the birth of the child. So here we have opportunity to observe this process of how the brain is changing. And Mr. Cash explained before how is this going, actually interaction of fields from the center on the outer layer change the GANs of copper to GANs with other properties. It's very interesting, and it's nice that I have opportunity to see, to observe this in life. And what can I say? Maybe about GANs, people are now doing experiments at home, and well, sometimes there is not very clear understanding of GANs. Actually, GANs material is a plasma, but you see the matter of that plasma, the outer interaction. GANs is actually balanced field. It's balanced field of GANs material with environment gravitational magnetic field. And there is difference between GANs and matter. GANs is magnetic gravitational field dependent in respect to environment. But you see GANs because gravitational magnetic field of the GANs, and you see matter because of gravitational magnetic field of the environment. And that's the difference. Actually, GANs is entity on its own. There is no anymore electrons, protons, neutrons inside. There is one entity, and when it finds a balance, it creates this atmosphere, which is entity on its own. It's independent on the environment, like heat and pressure, but it is dependent on gravitational magnetic field of the environment. So when you put these GANs to another environment, like from Earth to, let's say, to Mars, it will create other interaction, other color. And well, that's the point that I want to share about GANs. When we talk about CO2 GANs, it's magnetic fields of all these elements which create these GANs. Well, and maybe also about radiation, what I learned here, the source of radiation is actually neutron. Usually material, radioactive material, they have too many neutrons. That's the cause of radiation. When you have too many neutrons to release energy, magnetic gravitational field energy, and too low number of protons to receive this energy, then you have radioactive material. If you look at tritium, it's radioactive. It has 2 neutrons, 1 proton, and it's not balanced. When it is in pairs, it's balanced. But when you have too many neutrons to release and too low number of protons to receive, then the radiation occurs. And also, if you look at other materials with bigger atomic number, like uranium, plutonium, cesium, you always observe a big number of neutrons. When the relation is like 50 to 30 so the neutrons are more, then you have radiation, and it's also depends how many neutrons are there. Are there odd number or even number? So when they are in the pairs, they create some kind of twinity, and they don't release so much radiation. But when they cannot find their twin, they have to release magnetic gravitational field, which we observe like radiation. So that's the way how I see radiation at that moment. So, what can I say?
I have a question, Marco.
Yes, Eisen.
I have a quantity of apparently CH3 GANs. What kind of applications are available to me? Like, what could I use it for that you know of?
Well, that's a big question. For usable application, it's very difficult to say testing should be done with GANs material, and I cannot say anything till these tests are done. And for these tests, we need cooperation with top scientific organizations, and I'm sure there are lots of applications. There are applications in health technology. You can use it most probably also in the agriculture. But if you expect from me that I'll give you a recipe now, I cannot give you. Actually, we are just starting to stand up with this technology. Then we have to learn how to walk and then how to run. So I'm sure that people from university who are listening to this program, they have different background and they see how to use these applications, how to use nanomaterial. We are more or less quite ordinary people, and we are not the top scientists here. So, yeah, but we understand the message of this technology and what is.
Yeah, I want to just to intervene just a second. Probably this is for Mr. Cash. One of the problems that these scientists you were talking about are raising is we need to obtain something controllable and verifiable. For example, CH2, C2H2, C2H3, whatever, because these are the building blocks for everything. So at this point, it's obvious neither the people in the plasma groups, and probably the only one who can do this is Mr. Cash. So if we can come with a protocol that could consistently deliver this kind of substances, which in main science language means ethyl-methyl radicals, all these people from all these universities will step in, but they cannot, how to say, influence their organizations until consistent results can be obtained. So I'm thinking when you guys or Mr. Cash has some little bit free time, we can put down a protocol to demonstrate this, and at this point we can have aboard a lot of people with us.
Well, Mr. Cash is doing his own research and he's cooperating with different scientific organizations around the world, and this is going on in the background. For safety reasons, sometimes it's not very good to come out with all this information, but you can see the application of GANS material in Fukushima experiment. There were 4 documents published last week about Fukushima and all other documents, and you can very clearly see how you can use this technology and these materials. At least you can use it for neutralization of radiation. This can be used. But we showed how can be used, but scientific world now has to do another step forward.
I must say, Marco, much gratitude for the work you are doing there.
Well, it's very nice to hear this, and I hope that you support us, because in a soul we are all connected, and if we will work together and support each other, and with your support we will progress, and also we can share with each other this progress. And when you support us, we can feel this support. When there is no support, we can feel this. And it's much more difficult to work when there is no support. So that's also the message. If you want to have a progress, you have to do something also at yourself. Don't only expect that somebody else will do something for you or for humanity. We have to do steps. We have to do things, try to give, not only to receive, but try to give and to give unconditionally. And that's more important than to working with reactors. It's learning of life, of creation, yes, of laws of creation. That's what we are learning here at the Institute, and I hope that you understand this also as our followers or as a knowledge seekers at your home, because you don't need to be here as a knowledge seekers. You can be knowledge seekers or also at your home. Okay, I will pass microphone maybe to Armin.
Thank you, Marco.
Hello, guys. You have?
Hi, Armin.
I can answer any other question. Maybe my way.
This infamous material that we keep hearing about that you've brought over, is it the material that we've seen before where you talked about how you were going to try to build it into a reactor?
Which material?
Well, I don't know, about a year ago, you were showing us some material on our plasma group. I think it was just a polycarbonate, but it was really thick.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're going to try to the 3D aspect of it, like you said, you're going to try to get it machined or something?
Oh yes. Oh, we are right now. Actually, we are looking for actually machinists that they can cut this for us. You know, in Italy, if you know, it's very hard to find a person who can, you know, work with and cut it perfectly for us. But yes, we are trying to, you know, build a transparent reactor that we can inject with GaNs, and we can see the interaction, different GaNs.
So the same kind of design that you said that you had before with that material.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
okay.
That's, I mean, we talked about that for a long time, right? Last year.
Correct, last year. So, you know, and you can see with the John's reactor, and that I post some pictures over there that, you know, how it behaving, you know, and we're gonna try to do it transparent that everybody can see, you know, how the GaNs are interacting with each other. You know, my guess is, you know, the lighter material is gonna stay in the center, and the heavier it's gonna be more of a reactor wall, and this is where the interaction begins, you know, magnetic and gravitational fields. So we're trying to achieve that. I will post every single video. Yes. So
sorry, Mike, I think is close to the mouth.
Okay, sorry. So, and with different materials, we're trying to get, you know, I set up a new setup for GaNs actually, and we see right away the production is in there. So every step we're gonna post it in a Facebook, what we achieve or what the failures are that you see, guys, and you do it yourself to understand. We're all over here to learn.
Is that your flower static reactor?
Yes, I built it that one and I destroyed it myself. So, but I'm building it now too, because you know I have no patience.
Sorry, sorry that we are
Armin,
laughing.
cheeky is he?
This is Armand. I would tell you why we are laughing here. You know some things. You understand here is not all work. Armand worked on making this what I call like a flower. It's a center and about 9 pebbles, and he put his electrodes inside, and he connected the other electrodes from outside the ring. And this what do you call it, system was on the table for about 2-3 days. And you know, time, day and a half. There we are. He's got a count of it. So after I was in a meeting, I come back yesterday. I look for this what do you call it, this system, which is like a flower inside and a connection from the pebbles outside, and it wasn't there. But and not because I bought 2 of these to test how flowers actually absorb energy from the sun and how they convert, and that was part of learning. This thing wasn't there, so I started looking for it and I asked Armand, where is it? He says, there it is there. So what he did, because he didn't see anything, ganses to be made and things like that, so he thought it's not working. So what he did, he dismantled it and he changed it exactly the way he knew he'd get something in. At least he was happy he was doing something. And I just said, Armand, come with me, I'm going to show you something. I took Armand and Marco to the place where we keep 3 or 4 chickens. That's our daily bread, as we call it. They lay egg for us. And by accident, coincidentally, one of these chickens is sitting on eggs. It's the time of the year they sit on the eggs to hatch. And I took Marco and Armand into the back and I said, look, I opened the box. I said, look at this chicken. Sits for 21 days on this egg, waiting for a life. And you expect things to change in one day, and if it doesn't work, you change it. Learn from the chicken. Have patience. And this is the process that a lot of people just make things and they expect to see things. And in this technology, things happen. You are blind to it. Because you always look for a material dimension to confirm you've done something right. If you've done something right, it's happening, but it's not for you to see, or you're not wise enough to see. So I took Armand and Marco into the grass outside, and I picked a flower from the floor, and I said to them, look at this flower. It's got a center like the reactor you had, and the pebbles, but you have to understand why it's got so many pebbles. Why the pebbles only connect to the outside, not in the center, the way it was done with the setup. Why was all the purpose of this is just to be able to create enough information that the life can be repeated somewhere else with the dust on top of this flower. We don't see it, but they do it billions of times every day. And this is the same thing. So he said, I was born in 7 months, that's why I have no patience. So this is the process. With this technology, if you don't see something physically, understand at least to see the effect of it around you, and then you understand you've done something. It's you who did not understand it. And that's why we start laughing. We went to see the chicken, and chicken there for 21 days. Oh yeah. No, he felt guilty, he says, and he built another one. I pass him on.
Any more questions?
Yes. Did you nano coat the material or did you add? You just use it as a boxes kind of thing?
Yes. One electrode is nano-coated, second one is not. You know, and
Okay,
I did,
but you're just using the tin tray as just a bucket?
yes. I'll post that pictures. I never post that, you know, the one original, I built it. So I will post that, you will see, guys, in a Facebook, or I will post it in a few minutes. I don't have my computer.
Because I was thinking about doing the same thing, except using the nano coating inside the tin itself, and you know, just seeing what happens. But like you said, we have to have patience.
Yes, definitely. I agree on that. I agree on that. So, you know, and I have done some other tests. You know, I nano coat copper and zinc wire, and I just you know, put the current through it. You know, and the production of GANs, it started right away, like you forcing the metal to open up. But as Mr.
Is it
Kirsch
the
said,
same kind of thing, or is it different?
what is it?
It's
the same thing.
Like the same kind of material, same thing. Okay.
It's the same thing, but you know, when you put the current, you know, the chunks of GANs, it's more. If it's higher current, this is more what I observe. If it's higher current, the chunks are more bigger actually, and if you put the current little bit down, it's very fine. You know, it's metal is releasing, opening up itself. So if you change the polarity, it change what kind of material you are producing. If it's south on zinc and north on copper, you know, it actually creates zinc, CO2. But if I change the polarity, it's totally different material it's producing over there. And when it's nano-coated, it has to be one of the wires has to be nano-coated. So to see the effects.
Were you also getting hydrogen and oxygen? Sorry, Sazan.
What is it?
I was just going to say.
The gas?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. One by one, please.
Were you getting gas off of the electrodes too?
Yes.
So Armin, is that the zinc you're using? Is that solid zinc, or is it iron coated with zinc?
No, it's solid zinc.
Stolen from a roof.
Yeah, stolen from roof.
No, it's not stolen.
No,
It's taken out.
Yeah, John. John had this material, so he gave it to me, so I'm using it. Yeah, you have all kind of materials with you.
So Armin, I'm making the guess that you applied a voltage lesser than probably 1.5 volts for not obtaining hydrogen, because that is the minimum voltage. So
yes,
in this way you can prevent hydrogen.
I went up to I think 8, 9 to see what's the.
When you were casting it.
Yeah.
Please. They're again laughing. I'm sorry to jump in like this. Please do not do this in open. This what you do. You said you see electron, what do you call it, gases under the surface. When you are creating these gases bubbling up, you're throwing these gases in the air which you are inhaling. Please be careful what you are doing. It's just because you repeat something somebody else has done. Can you inhale literally directly? It's a gas is bubbling up because I was on top of it when he was doing it. What happens when it's in a vapor? You don't see it. But in reality, it ends up in your lungs, in your liver, and everywhere. On your skin, and it gets absorbed in. If you want me to be very, very blunt about it, I'll give you an example. This is a scientific research. Some years ago, they didn't tell anybody to, didn't say anything to nobody about when people go to toilet. Big toilet or whatever. And then, after a few days, they went around the bathroom and they collected everything to see what has gone from the toilet to outside, where it's sitting. And they found traces of human excrement, which was actually in the toilet and it was flushed away on the toothbrushes. And this is a scientific research fully because they wanted to know the effect of environment and where things go. If you go to a toilet, which you flush a toilet, and you can find traces of it on your toothbrush, now imagine what you do when you sit on top of these boiling things or the gas bubbles up. I think sometimes, to be blunt, brings the fact to the face exactly what's happening. Don't do these experiments, even if you think you put it on the container. Tests like this has to be done in a very because don't forget, when you post these things, as you say, the young guy is testing with the lemon juice and whatever. You are putting the life of youngsters who are trying to follow us. What do you call careless behavior can become the damage to the foundation. And the people like you lot and a lot of people who are on the front have to be careful, especially now that the science is breaking through. Please understand that what you are doing. Don't touch your ganses. These are plasmas that go through your body. Don't inhale. We do not know. Don't go. We had Marek here saying, "Oh, I ate things and nothing happened to me. I didn't feel any more energetic." Wait till we know what the side effects are when you're tested. It's not what do you call it? Heroes will be zeros. You'll die because of these things, because our body are absorbing so much. Please let us open the technology in conjunction with all of us. There are scientists who are analyzing material for everybody around the world. There are scientists who are analyzing the ganses, the material, the energy level. We are doing a lot of work here ourselves in the background, understanding the effect, chemical effect, and other side effects. When we are 100% sure, we release it to you. But please don't do these tests. It's harmful to you, and it's such a wrong way for the young scientists who are following the technology. We have a huge followers in teenage bracket, huge followers around the world, and this cannot you cannot teach them reckless work. And these kind of things to me is reckless because we don't know the parameters. These are the things which we make.
So, Mr. Keshe, two more safety questions.
Yeah.
First of all, if there are some lab utensils, something like glass syringe and stainless steel needles, so if after use these are washed in water or I don't know.
It doesn't go. We see them staining. Even our syringes are stained. I never touch the center. I always watch where I'm touching when I extract things from the bars. If you notice when you put your syringes to take the, what do you call it, the nanomaterial from bottom of your pot, there is a grease stuck to your syringe on the top where you're passing the water through.
That's correct,
this is a
right?
gans, then you're observing, then you're absorbing it again. The process is very, very. Let us do it this time for the sake of humanity the correct way. Otherwise, our own tests become our biggest one. Pardon. Carry on.
And the second question is, if people are trying to experiment with the GANs, as you do in your lab, they're just covered with a piece of plastic or paper into the room. Is my understanding that should be quite safe? In other words, it will not raise into the atmosphere to be inhaled?
You see, what happens depends how you do it and what you do it, the way you do it. Yeah? The simple way is if you just put a glove on, just get a tissue paper or put a glove on, a surgical glove, and just touch the nanolayers. You see it becomes black. When you are not wearing a glove, where does this go when you touch it with your skin? Into your body, into your skin.
Yes,
Just
but
get
my
a tissue
question was
paper.
if the container stays on a table. Yes, but this was not the question. The question was if the recipients are staying on a table and just covered with a piece of plastics or paper, this gas will not raise into the atmosphere to be inhaled.
No,
Is this
usually
correct?
shouldn't, because you need to create a condition for it to do. Don't forget, for decades, man has put copper in what do you call it? In caustic. For decades, we've done it. Everybody does, but they never understood the process, what it does to them. Now we understand. We have to stop. Now we know if you create one condition, you create an atomic structure. So if you don't give it the right environment, it won't be released.
Right. My question was because if there is any danger, all the people who can experiment will have some sort of fan, and in the room in which they have the containers with the salted water and the gas, it will have an overpressure. So that means all that thing will go out of the garage, out of the home, out of the room.
Yeah, but this is part. Yeah, that is what we are doing ourselves. But we don't go to the extent of sitting on top of it and breathing it. This is a natural process. Don't forget, gas is part of the structure of our life. It's
Yes,
not
the
something
second issue
strange.
is you could have
It
like a little
goes
part
everywhere.
that will be on the top
As
of
Marcos says, you can't isolate yourself from it, but you can stop it going in when it's not needed.
Right, I was just speaking about safety. Or you can have like a little hood with a fan, which will continuously absorb the air on the top of the plastic container, throw it out of the room.
You can do that, but then you want to join them with another piece. Then you want to make a system. It becomes like clean rooms. You can't, nobody can afford that kind of, but deliberate acts has to stop. You know what you know, you can prevent yourself. You have a gas in the house. You don't go and turn it on and burn the house down. But you know it's there when you need it and you know how to handle it. You take care. It's the same thing. You got to be careful till how much we absorb, how much we receive. As I always say, I've been the first people who's been contaminated with these things. I deal with it on a daily basis, but I don't want to see children or other, even adults. I know old people have started making these reactors. Old pensioners, they have found a hobby now, making Coca-Cola bottle. You'll be amazed how many old people are buying the books. Because they see it as a hobby, or the grandson or the granddaughter has said, have you seen this? So that they think through Coca-Cola bottle they receive a free energy. The lure of free energy has brought a lot of people to Coca-Cola bottles. But at the same time, we got to teach them. We got to be safe. You got to be what it is. We are not all perfect. I always do. I see things and I make mistakes and everything else like everybody else does. But at least we try to minimize it. You can put all the nanomaterials. They can tell you, the knowledge seekers, all the nanomaterials I ever produced here is always in plastic container. With me, you never see nanomaterials open hanging somewhere unless it's been left by accident. I keep all the nanomaterial coated in plastic containers. What has been made 7, 8, 10 years ago, they're all in plastic containers. Even from then. Because we don't know the consequence of it, we don't know, even though it's part of us. Put it this way, you've been producing nano layers. Every time you had a blockage in your pipe, in your sink, in the bathroom, and you put caustic in it to open it. If you look at the picture of the caustic material we use, it's the shape of a pipe. It's part of our life, but we don't need to go over the top and do it the other way once you change it into a GANs. As long as it's a nano layer, there is no, because it's matter state. When you release in the atomic GANs, then the problem starts, because now it's a lion free. You can bite anywhere and it tracks anywhere. This is the problem. We don't know. You see, as I said before in one of the workshops, we close a reactor a year, 2 years later. I open it and I see the dust of caustic on the rings. So even though I washed it, it's there, the process never stopped. This understanding and being careful is 100 times better than not understanding and being careless. These things exist. We are part of it. GANs is part of our structure. So
in this connection, I would like
pardon?
to add my experience.
Please,
I poured green GANs into a plastic container, and in a week or so there was a hole in the plastic. So even though the plastic container always holds the GANs inside.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you had some level of caustic in your mixture, one of the first things we do here when we take the GANs out of the containers, because don't forget the nanowire you coated was in the GANs, you never washed it. Now you put in the salt water, the residue of caustic in that salt water. And if its residual is too high, what we do, we put in the plastic in with the salt, and then when it settles, we put the salt back out and we wash the GANs. We never use the GANs direct. The GANs, as you see in the bottles, we wash it with the tap water 2 or 3 times, and then the last stage, once or twice before we use it with distilled water. We leave it, we wash it with distilled water, we leave it, and we take it from the bottom that there is as much as possible the GANs than the water. And even then, when we leave the GANs in the bottle, the water comes up, we still drain the water as much as we can. So you got to just don't extract and put it in a bottle. If you do it, you have to wash it, because you still have caustic in it. Especially the first times you take GANs from the material, there is a good dosage of caustic in your package.
So if I may draw a conclusion, the lab stainless steel needles probably should be burned with a torch to at least 1200 degrees to destroy everything that, and maybe higher if the stainless steel joints sustain it, to destroy any possible substances that may be, to make it as safe as possible.
Direct fire is the only way you do it. You can't put it in the oven because you don't change it.
Right, no, I was thinking about propane torch.
Yeah, it can be. That's most probably one of the ways to do it. But don't underestimate. You have to understand the property of the GANs you have and what is there for. You can connect the GANs for a very specific reasons for materials. Well, I'll teach you new materials now. When you lot get comfortable with producing these things, then I show you matters which are made of GANs and their capabilities. Now you see the matters which are made of nanomaterial, which is on top of the wires. You see there's a superconductor. But when you understand how to operate with the matters which are from GANs, then you don't even believe in the nano anymore. But you have to understand this step before you go to the other. We saw the structure yesterday when we broke the reactor of John. Because you can create structures with the GANs that is absolutely the properties which is unbelievable. Very much I explained to you in a simpler way. I was explaining this last week to the knowledge seekers. levitation, the people who create systems that levitate over Earth for 10 centimeter, half a centimeter, or whatever, a meter, they can never fly, because in the material they produce, they create gravitational magnetic field, which is the maximum that that field can create between that material and the gravitational magnetic field of the Earth. Now, translate the same knowledge in two ganses. Why the ganses stay like a ball? If you know how to interact and make it field, plasmatic field condition, you can make materials from, what do you call it, from the GANs that to man does not exist. Imagine you connect, you put Earth, Mars, Saturn, and everything else next to each other. They're all plasmatic, they're all like a GANs, and then imagine how they behave and what you can do between them. How you can use one to get to the other one without actually going through any other ones. In a very simple way, you refer to the nano-coated gold. If you understand the potential of making materials with that as a GANs and not as a nanolayer, then you open zero-time transportation, zero-time communication. You don't need to go to New York to go to Hawaii. You go directly to Hawaii. These are the things, step at a time. Let us teach you a step at a time. When you make reactors which are layered with GANs, not with nanolayers, and then you play, you see the game. There is a process to do it. You have to allow it time. That partially the matter can attach itself to the what do you call it, to matter as a GANs. It's very much like your skin. Step at a time. Outside the skin, you accept atmospheric condition matter. Inside your skin, after 3 layers, you accept condition which is GANs holding. Do the same thing with your reactors. This is what you have to learn. Let us go step slowly. I'll teach you how to do it. When you make reactors which are layered. Next question.
So if you dry the GANs with a torch, and of course we've gone through this before, you are turning it back into a matter. If you if you let it dry naturally and let the water evaporate, it stays as in the GANs formation. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because because I've done it. It took me a year to reach to that stage. If you can look at the books, the pages in the book, you see it becomes first like a paste. If you don't wash it, it becomes like a paste. If you wash it, you cannot dry it so easy. The paste comes from the binding of the salt, sodium. But when you wash it, it's much harder to dry it. And then when it dries, it doesn't dry, it dries like a, you see it's like balls, it's like having a bottle of marbles in the bottle. It doesn't behave like a matter. Because I looked at this, I did a lot of, and Dirk tried to make a lot of pictures, close-up pictures when we were mixing them, and a couple of them are in the book. That they don't mix. What we show in one of the tubes in the book that we say GANs materials don't mix. Now with the transparent small ball reactor which Armand made in past 2 weeks, we see this 100% correct.
Actually, I do have some 580 times zoom pictures that I made from a...
Hello?
Formation, and you can see...
We are losing you. Hello, John. While we're trying to get him back, hello, have we lost everybody?
No, at least part of us are here.
Pardon?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. I just muted myself and came back, and I seen that I didn't have a mic.
It's Gans, he says. It's Gans, he says. Carry on. Can somebody switch off the microphones who are not speaking? Yeah, carry on. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Now it's better. Okay, can you carry on, please?
Sorry. I have pictures 580 times, and the structures of two different GANs, they didn't connect to each other, but you could see the different spherical shapes that were connected to each other's GANs. And so that's a
Yeah, they keep separate because they become matter in a Gans state. They don't become, they become structure in a Gans state, but not in a matter state. There are other ways of doing these things, and then you will see further what goes on and how it is. Any other question? We're getting to about 11 and a half.
So what's the way to determine
Ludmil,
this?
I have a very good news for you. Extremely
Okay.
good news.
Okay.
I think this is something you've been looking for or waiting for. Maybe it seems to, from our health trials, that we might have found the route to diabetic 2.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
The results are coming back very strongly, and it's a new development. And we did this about 6-7 years ago, and then about 8 years ago, and we repeated it now in a different form, but with a more advanced knowledge. And within 6 weeks, we have seen news.
Can anybody hear me now? Through the live stream? I'm trying to go directly through.
More, but the 50% is a minimum.
Nothing.
System for a large number of people around the world with the diabetic 2. It's a very simple. You set the system up, and according to the people who are using it, it's just a lady after 25 years, 2 weeks ago, for one day did not use any insulin.
I don't mind working on system like that.
Oh, you don't need to work. The system does this work. So we're going to offer this. We're going to open two aspects of the health which we know we have we can release in being able to finance the running of the institute as for all these applications. So not only you get benefit by it, the institute gets benefit by it to be able to run its affairs. So in a way, we don't commercialize it, but one is fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia we can confirm with enough data that it can be allowed for people to stop suffering from it in the major part. And secondly is diabetic 2. And soon we will go on diabetic 1 because we have a volunteer in the UK who has a very good record. We might go back to him. So diabetic, we can say the use of insulin can drop quite drastically according to what is come back over 6-7 years of research. Now we targeted especially a specific part of the body which is responsible for it, and it seems to be correct. The person concerned within the first week starts seeing the changes. So maybe that's a good news for you and the diabetics. We're going to put a voluntary donation for this system that allows people to help themselves and allows the foundation to finance. Now go to a health center which is registered for the medical support from the foundation. This has been done, hopefully we know by close of business today or by Monday. So the things are moving in the right direction for the people who use the technology.
I don't mind if I can help you anything with a physical device or something else. I got pretty good luck here. And I hope,
Yes, no problem. But let us put things, especially with what's happening with the Belgian government. We are getting confirmation and protection through other governments.
in
There are a lot
about
of
a month, I am gonna be very close to Italy too. If you need me
listen,
to
if you're
help you.
100 kilometers away, you're not close enough. You got to be here. Being
Well,
in
I
Canada
will
or
be close
Spain
to
is
them.
all the same.
No,
Where are you
I
going?
will be there, Palma de Mallorca for a month. Armin is gonna come to me. He
Oh
promised.
yeah, you just bought up. I just seen that. Thank you very much, Rick, that you set up the Humanity Walk with Messiah. You're all Messiahs yourself. You walk with it yourself, and I've just seen that people already saying we're coming to Rome. They want more explanation. We explain more. The whole thing is that as a human race, we set to change the way that we think the life should be. And we carry other people with us. We have to be the example, not trying to force our ideas. But we have to tell people how we think and how we think can be achieved. As I said in my letters, I go back to it again. It's on one of the paragraphs. I'll read it if you haven't read, if you haven't managed to get the paper, yeah, that we ask that let the religious leaders to attend in the cloth of the man, not in the robe of the path of the faith. And then we'll see there is no difference. And I think this has to come from the people who call themselves or live the path of God in the house of God. This reads, it is the job of every man who reads this message to send a copy of this message to the world religious leaders, be it imams, pope, rabbi, priest, and all holy men of this planet, to call them for a meeting of all the clothes of the man as equal, and not in their clothes and robes of the names of God. So elaborately they have sculptured to impress the weak and needy over the past times. So I think when man meets man, man understands man. When you see somebody, you can't say what religion he carries, but you can say how good or how bad is with the way he approaches you, according to yours. So this is the purpose of this position. And as I see, we already have people who said they're coming to Rome from outside Italy to be there at 11 o'clock on the 16th.
Just to clarify for people, would you be actually there at that time when this is happening, or would you be actually physically walking with people to this destination?
Yep.
Okay.
It's only 4 hours drive for us, 5 hours drive.
Mm-hmm.
We could have put it on a Sunday, we could have put it on Saturday, but if you've been to Rome and you've been to Vatican, especially this time of year, summertime, there are many people who come to pay a visit to the Holy See. So Monday is the best time that it can be done. We'll be there most of the day. If it's not there, just a few minutes. We will ask and people will post where they want to meet. If you've been to Rome and Vatican, there is no, what do you call it, borders. It's just a line. So we can meet, we'll announce where we meet on the Facebook and we'll be there. Don't forget on the 21st, 22nd, we're giving a lecture, partially by me and partially by knowledge seekers. They will be the first time they present as knowledge seekers in the lecture with me. And as a knowledge seekers, totally we will deliver part of the technology and what the technology is going to bring. There's a recording done for the Italian televisions, which is already one part is on the bottom, will be done next day or two, which is about 4 hours about the technology and aspects of the technology, and that will be released too. So there are some other moves. We will release a couple of reports in the coming days. Independently outside the Keshe Foundation, and when we have it, we have partially the results we know, and partly it's a lot to do with contamination, and is partially connected to Fukushima. Some research from the leading world institutes or governments show the correctness of the paper which was released as Fukushima. And this will be released as we receive it and as we agree with the officials and the people who done the test, because these tests are paid by individuals and companies to be done for for change of the course in pollutions. A lot of land pollutions can be sorted. We have data, but we will receive more next few days and we release more to you. But it has to be both ways. You teach us, we teach you, and you teach everybody else. Each one of you have his own expertise, and that's what's the beauty of human being. We can share what we understand. We are still online regarding the power generator. We see what comes up if it will be released by the manufacturers, the prototype, if they finished it. And we will see that too, because a lot of people ask to it what happened. Now it's in the hand of the Italian manufacturers. They're trying to perfect it the way the Italians do their job. And I appreciate it. So let's see what they come up with. And we're still waiting to see any response regarding who would like to, to support the Institute, because we need a lot of support, not only financially, but physically. We need a lot of organization. And one of the problems we have in Italy, hardly many people speak English. So everything has to be done internationally by everybody else. We need people who can take over charge of accepting students in the registration. We need people on the administration side. We put enough time. John and Marco and knowledge seekers, they come about 10 o'clock and they're here 10, 11, 12 o'clock most of the night just in the lab and doing things. So we need as much as you like to see the flight system, you like to see the energy, we share the knowledge, we need the support backwards in people setting a structure around the foundation. And don't come in to gain something from it, because the whole structure is that we give what we can. It needs a lot of people. There are a lot of youngsters who want to learn and come into the technology to do things. We need to put the structures, how to translate the knowledge we have now as adults, we talk about it, to teach to the children. One of the major things is we have to transfer the knowledge in its fundamental position, the way some couple of governments I know are doing, to translate the knowledge in the child's language. The way you teach a child about atom, now you have to teach it the correct way about the atom. There is not only 3 states, there is a 4th state. Know what that 4th state is? That you can understand, because once you put the seed of atom is the only thing, an electron, then changing the mind at the age of 18, 20 is too difficult. The process is fundamental. The way we talk at this level, we speak about the gas and current, we have to find a way to translate the knowledge into the knowledge of the child. Any other questions, or we wind it up for today? But okay,
Plus, it's
we
been
meet
3
next
hours
Thursday.
and 40 minutes.
we'll be here next Thursday. We meet on Monday in Rome. Whoever turns up, I'm sure the Italian Keshe Foundation supporters will be at least 10 of us, maybe more. But the thing is, if you're not in Rome, if you're not in Italy, on Sunday or Monday, whatever, before that day, take the message to the holy men of your district and whatever. It's for them to judge, not for you to influence. Even if it means leave it on the floor of the mosque when the man prays to it, or leave it with the imam, or leave it with the high rabbi, because they understand what it means. And I thank you for all your support and all your hard work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, so ends the what mishappened 13th Knowledge Seekers workshop. Boy, we had our share of audio problems, I'll tell you. But we'll end up with a good recording out of it and get that to people. There is a site that has that.
Rick, can you separate the first part from the rest and put it on the link of the Facebook?
Okay, as a movie you mean, or as an audio file?
No, as whatever. The part which is to do with what do you call it? With Rome.
Mm-hmm.
First hour, Rick.
There we go. Put that separately to the link, because people who go to the link of humanity, they don't want to listen to the scientific side.
Right, I see what you're saying. Sure, yeah, we can do that.
They can listen to understand the reason and try to see where we go.
Yeah, a lot of people on the live stream missed that, or everybody in the live stream missed it because we had bad audio at the first, and much of what was said there was missed. So we'll have to get a good audio recording of that, re-upload that to the live stream and to the Facebook, and of that first part. I'm sure we have that
me
recording.
and Rick can work on that.
Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, let me sign off the live stream.
We'll see you next week. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Bye for now.
So yeah, Rick, we'll work on that.
Yeah, just a sec here.